Really ugly. I love this trophy. It seems like we are finally ready to start our grand finals of the WSG 2018. I know it's 2019, guys, but it's WSG 2018. That was Serral, and this man
is INnoVation. What a grand final. Best of 7. First to 4 map wins. If we go to all 7 games, we get to see every map in the map pool. Starting off on Kairos Junction, one of the middling maps. Not too small, not too large. Not your Year Zeros or King's Cove. Also not your Cyber Forests.
We can start off with another classic. This could be a long game, it could be a short game, it could be in the middle as well.
Yeah, could be a bit of anything.
Shout out to the other casters out there. We're obviously looking at Serral, making sure that he doesn't get proxied over here with his first Overlord. Now, we saw this map being used in, of course, the previous best of 5 that we casted as well between Maru and Scarlet. This was an interesting one as well, to say the least.
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit funky, wasn't it? I mean, all those games between Maru and Scarlet were so funky. I mean, the mixed up Niduses, the misplaced spawning pools. In general, I feel like this series is just going to look so different altogether, right?
I kind of hope so.
Yeah, you would, right? Especially with just the way the entire series went.
Just to give you guys one giggle before we get serious over here, apparently Warde received a text message from his lovely mother in the break. And she asked him, how come you've been casting Starcraft 2 for all these years and you're still so confused? It's like, well, Warde's mom, this is not entirely his fault. This goes for pretty much all of us when it comes to that previous best of 5. But I'm so ready, man. I'm so excited. And I just hope we get to watch some amazing Starcraft 2. These two, the last 2 times they've clashed, it was epic. No way around it. Home Story Cup was fantastic. Serral did take that one. I mean, IEM maybe a little less relevant because both of them were out, but there was still money on the line. And I also believe, like, I'm definitely, I mean, I love both these guys. INnoVation is one of my all-time favorite Terrans, and of course, I think it's impossible not to be a fan of Serral, the way that he handles himself in interviews and the things he's done for StarCraft 2 already. It's just impossible not to be a fan. But I do not believe that Serral would ever play 2 45-minute games and is okay with losing them. Like, no, there's no excuse for that. No, but what is this drone doing, by the way? That's kind
maybe
of fun.
Just really hiding from the Reaper.
From the Reaper, yeah. So it's taking an interesting detour there. But I believe there's no excuses for that. If Serral didn't care about the series, he would have knighted us twice in 5 minutes. And if you then lose it, you can be like, eh. Like the series that Serral lost back then online versus Neep, that was one to me that truly felt a bit lackluster. That felt uninspirational. Serral tapped out earlier than he normally would. Serral does not play 2 45-minute games to be okay with losing, guys. He absolutely did try, but I also stand by my previous point. I do believe he has learned from those games.
And there was a lot to learn from as well. Let's see what happens in the early game, though, here from INnoVation. With Hellions on the way and a starport coming through as well, we'll see some form of early game pressure. Of course, those Hellions to take map control. You know, even start pushing back a little bit of creep here and there, and obviously there's so many options with those Hellions to either run by, maybe you get an armory and go into Hellbats. That barrack's building a pretty quick tech lab after the Marine, and so the starport might be able to jump onto that soon, or it could be a fast stim as well.
Everything seems pretty standard here in game 1 up to this point. Obviously, both players are going to make sure they don't have any crazy slip-ups in the early stages. Now, obviously, a best of 7 is long, and this is just the first game, so I don't want to get too dramatic. But do you look at Kairos Junction as a must-win map for INnoVation, or just like it's definitely better if you win this one? Now, of course, you want to win every map, guys. I do understand it. But there are certain maps where I think players are like, if that doesn't work out, it is what it is. I feel like this is one of Inno's better maps in this map pool, right?
I mean, it's so good for Terrans with the rocks towards the third base that you can maybe utilize. In general, you've just got drop avenues into the third base. The bases aren't too far away to push into, and I think the pushes on this map are very powerful because the high grounds are there to use tanks on. So I think you have to look at this as like, if I can't win on here, how do I change my player style to be able to win on maps that don't have those advantages? Yeah,
like obviously no man overboard if it doesn't work out, but this is one of those where it's a little more than a 50% scenario where you do really want to have a good showing if you're INnoVation and you want to have a strong start to your grand finals, because in general, everything that you said is spot on, and those things, they just matter. But we'll see. Of course, every game, I mean, there is no sure thing. There is no easy win or something, especially not when you go up against Serral, but we will see. That's quite a few roaches already, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, Pneumatized Carapace, do you think he's going to go for like the Roach Queen drop? So he drops the Queens with the Roach attack because maybe he thinks this map isn't so great to play a longer game on? There's the Drop-A-Lord.
There's your Drop-A-Lord indeed, Warde. I think you're onto something quite quickly, and that would make sense, right? Serral is often quite smart as well when it comes to switching up his play, but that stim is pretty fast, by the way, for Inno. Inno is somebody who loves his quick stims in almost every matchup. because that obviously gives him that micro potential. He's going to push back. He's going to send these Reapers and Hellions back. Do you think he's already aware of it? Do you no bonkers yet. I feel like if Inno knew, he would be throwing up bonkers at this point, right?
Yeah, I think so, but his build is just typically good against this because he has early tanks and that early stim.
If he snipes the Dropper Lord with the Queens inside of it, I mean, that one tank on the high ground is going to be massive. I still would have loved the bunker, but INnoVation is... Ooh, that's another Dropper Lord. Hey, where's the Queen? Where are the Queens then?
They're just above, I think, the Roaches here, that Overlord that's just off our screen to the top side. Nice reposition on that tank, by the way. The Ravagers were looking for the Corrosive Biles. And Serral being very cautious here, just hanging back, doesn't dive into anything.
Yeah, but... Okay, INnoVation is going to pause now. He's like, I can't find the bunker building.
Yeah, he's like, wait a minute, I just want to think about how to deal with this. No, obviously, he got something he wants to figure out. But we're actually pausing a very interesting moment because Serral's about to drop the main with some links, and that's something I don't think INnoVation even begins to think about.
Nope. I think he may be slightly worried about Queens being dropped on top of that tank, because that's something that we have seen in the past. But then the Marines are still relatively close by. If the links get a wraparound around the tank is gone. The tank is not going to move anywhere. Serral's not looking too pleased with the timing on this pass. He's like, oh, okay. Oh, man, what a great final, though, this is on paper. And it's hard to get a lot more excited.
I actually already love the fact we're seeing something real different from Serral in game number 1 as well. Kairos Junction is like, you know what, okay, let's do something different. Let's switch it up already. Because that's what makes Serral such a dangerous player, right? He is not someone who only ever macros. He throws in the all-in, so you can't just be like, okay, I'll play greedy to get into a better macro position. Because you don't know when these sort of attacks will happen.
And I think it's spot on when it comes to the analysis of the map, right? I think this is a map where Serral is like, there are maps where I'm okay with sitting back. There are maps where I feel a lot more comfortable to go up to 4 bases, 5 bases, spread creep, and 80 drones. But maybe this is just not one of those maps. Maybe he is worried about some of these crazy tank pushes with Stim. I mean, when it comes to controlling Stim bio, you know that Inno's up there. You said this before in the tournament. INnoVation has a lot of fans in China. Often makes trips to China as well to play in some of the more quote-unquote random events, at least to us in the Western world, because we don't exactly always know what's going on. There's a little Serral cheerful as well there.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool, man. There's a lot of Starcraft fans out in that crowd, right? Which is, considering there's like all sorts of different games on this main stage today. Obviously, we had our finals delayed a little because we were waiting for Hearthstone to finish up. It's pretty cool to see so many INnoVation and Serral signs hanging out over there, as INnoVation currently has a set of admins helping him out, and Serral's still just sat there waiting to get back into the action.
Yeah, this is it's just a gnarly moment for a pause, right? Because this is kind of that moment where you want everything to be smooth. You want to have it like one go only, probably knock down those depots, get the units in there, drop the links, and yeah, the longer the pause, the more likely it is that something goes wrong. I feel like we had an awkward pause early today as well, and that also had a couple of weird moments right after that. Yeah. These are just things that in general happen in StarCraft 2. It's very easy if you're in the flow, if you're in the heat of the moment you suddenly have an unexpected pause, it is quite possible that you forget something obvious. But, I mean, we're talking about 2 of the very best players in the world. Hopefully that's not going to be the case. And hopefully this will be our only pause in this Grand Finals.
One of those things you just have to deal with when it comes to competition here in StarCraft 2. Sometimes those pauses happen. As we have a nice... Well, again, we talked about this yesterday. What a beautiful stage, right?
I love it. I hear game sounds. All right, Serral is ready. INnoVation is ready. Here we go. Keep a close eye on the minimap, guys. That Overlord with the Zerglings is heading towards the main base. You gotta love the setup of INnoVation, but let's see if Serral, the Night King, can make some magic happen here.
Drop a load with the Queens inside. Has to get transfused, but the Viking will go down. INnoVation distracted. The depot has gone down at the front as Lings hit the main. Couple of SCVs down, that's SCVs now having to pull away. And Serral actually catching a few of them in a surround. That's 7 workers. That's a lot.
That is a lot, but that's it. And I still feel that Serral needs quite a bit more than this. Obviously, getting all these depots is nice, but it almost seems that Serral has made... Yeah, well, to see more links hatch, by the way. So Serral's definitely not done yet. But it's so many Marines with Stim. Take a look at that Dropper Lord as well. The Queens cannot go down here for Serral.
Marines pulling back. The Stim is absolutely huge. There's a lot more SCVs, but now there's nothing to tank for the Ravagers. So a few Ravager losses, and now the Overlord's going down as well. That's a missed rally there too. And actually, there's just more for the picking as Marines Stim forwards and will try and take an advantage from this. Ooh. And that is a big old lag spike. But we're straight back into it. Okay, we can get behind that. coming out of this, Serral down 15 workers, but of course he's down in tech as well, and that gives INnoVation a lot of opportunity with Marines and tanks right now.
Yeah, Serral's up 15 workers, but you're right. I mean, I actually like INnoVation's position. This feels a little bit similar to Maru versus Scarlet on Port Alexander that we saw there as well. It's like, yeah, economically it doesn't look too good for the Terran, but what is Serral's answer against this army? There is so much firepower in this force of INnoVation, and I have no idea how Serral is supposed to get a good engagement here. He does have a lot of Zerglings, I believe, in the middle of the map, so that's Serral's way to get out of this. These Lings need to come in. They need to get the wraparound on these tanks.
And here they come from the right-hand side. Ravagers, though, have not been able to hit Crows of Baal successfully on the tanks yet. Finally, the Lings are getting that wraparound to kill them off. I mean, the tanks go down. That's something at least here, but there's still a few Marines standing, but it looks like Serral will push this back and holds on now. And INnoVation will have to back away.
That's a pretty explosive start to our grand finals here. I'm quite impressed there. That was a good engagement by Serral. I don't think Serral's totally out of the woods yet. He's only up 8 workers. He's down an upgrade, and he doesn't have additional tech, right? He does still have this Dropper that could absolutely come into play. And if Serral can, let's say, get 8 more SCVs, that's where it really starts to hurt for INnoVation.
But here's the thing. Does INnoVation have a third CC? Because I kind of feel like we haven't seen one with the speed of the bio.
No. I don't think... But I mean, I still like his position.
Yeah,
his army is better.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the thing. But if Serral can somehow find a way to hold on, which we've seen Serral do so many times, I mean, that Dropper Load as well, a few roaches, definitely some potential, and these Marines won't do anything.
First upgrade is on the way. This is a very important drop here for Serral. Serral doesn't need to get the world here, but if he gets 8 to 10 SCVs, that's where things start getting very painful for INnoVation. Let's see, these roaches, I don't think Inno is aware of it yet. A couple of SCVs are bruised up already, so those are going to be easier pickups. And I like how he keeps the Dropper Lord alive. So even if Marines do come back, now that's 4 SCVs already, number 5 does go down. You can pick up the roaches, and you can probably just put him idle behind the base, right?
Yeah.
Well, you got to be fast.
Oh, he's not actually picking them up at all here. Okay, just decided the Overlord to probably go down, so he goes for more SCVs, but that's 10 workers killed, Roddy.
Yep.
That's a lot of damage.
But +1 armor is about to finish up as well. I do like this tiny drop from INnoVation because it can pull units out of position. Serral needs to hang on there one more time, but this is one of those spots that we were talking about before. Tanks can get a very good position against this third base of Serral.
And with the way that Serral's opened, he's not had time to clean out those rocks like you might usually see to open up that area. So tanks are going to have a great little position to sit behind here. Not a lot of Ravagers in play, not a lot of corrosive files. Okay, yeah. He's going to take a huge shot,
those are big shots. Oh my goodness, in the middle of that roach pack.
Yeah, there's also I just feel like there's nothing to get rid of tanks anymore, right? Like, there's only roaches here, there's so few Ravagers, a few more on the way in. Let's see, first corrosive bars go onto the bio, not the tanks. There's Marines in the main base as well. Roaches are derping around trying to deal with that, as on the front line, Roaches and Ravagers taking so much splash damage from the siege tank fire.
Yeah, a lot of Marines did go down, but obviously this has started off very, very well for INnoVation. Still a lot of HP on these Marines as well. Look at that Evo chamber on the left side. Carapace will finish up just in time, but these Ravagers feel so squishy. They're so exposed. A couple of corrosive balls do land in the middle of the pack. That's nice. You can say it's only 50 Marines, but this time Serral doesn't have those Lings anymore to flank those tanks, and those rocks, they have been worth their weight in gold for Inno. Even though he never paid for them, they are so useful.
Oh, yes they are. We see a tank going down, but that's all Serral will get as he types out a GG, and INnoVation will pick up game number 1 of the best of 7. A good back and forth. Some good moments from Serral, even when in a little bit of trouble, but at the end of the day, you mentioned it, the INnoVation army was just so good. It was so powerful. And like we talked about, those rocks are amazing. They just do so much for you, and there was just no way Serral could break through that.
Nope, and this time Serral did not have those additional 30, 40 Lings anymore to get a good wraparound. I think if Serral holds one more time there, it suddenly becomes a very playable game, if not a good game for Serral at that point, because of the lack of this third command center that you mentioned as well. But INnoVation got it done when it mattered the most. Serral seems a tiny bit frustrated, but these are emotions that Serral often has in series. Sometimes even if he wins a map, you'll see similar visual frustrations as well. So, and once again, this is a long final. It's a best of 7, no man overboard. Serral also kind of threw a curveball there in game 1 with the Roachling aggression. But if you're Inno right now, you gotta feel good, right? Because you know that if you do make it up to 5, 6, 7 bases, there's a lot of potential for you there. You won 2 incredibly long games at the Intel Extreme Masters against this man, and now he just kind of went for a quick rush in game 1. And you managed to stop that as well, so you're like, all right, how is he going to beat me? You know, if he's not beating me with his rushes, and he's not going to beat me ultra late game, if you're Inno right now, you got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, I think South Korean Terran will be very happy with how this series has started off. And of course, that wasn't anything too crazy from him either, right? It was just straight up bio tanks. Maybe not your everyday TVZ build, but it wasn't anything kind of cheeky from him. He's still probably got a couple builds up his sleeve in general to try and pick up a couple cheeky wins throughout the series. As we just wait to jump into our second map, hopefully in just the next few moments.
So wondering how on earth did he have so many Marines with Stim there already?
Yeah.
Couldn't you go for a good old 6 Heli and Banshee opening or something?
Which is what that build's really good against, right? INnoVation really just had a build order advantage from the start, to the point where you mentioned he didn't have bunkers.
Yeah.
He didn't need bunkers. That's how good his build was against what Serral was doing.
That's actually pretty crazy as well, right? Because it feels like, if you want to play it safe, you throw up a bunker or two, because they too can soak up a lot of corrosive biles, and every second that goes by there is in general a good second for INnoVation, because more and more Marines come out, and obviously the bigger the Marine pack becomes, the more that DPS increases. But yeah, it's like, no, I've got this, guys. I appreciate your concern, but I've got this. And he did.
Yeah, he had it under control. And our Chinese fans throwing up their signs once again. They all got these little hats on. I've never seen them before.
Where?
With the little, like, the writing on. Little headbands. There's literally none on the screen right now.
No, I was like, they all got headbands on. I'm like, what? I see nothing.
There was just a lot of them.
Okay.
There was a lot of them. And then they zoomed in on the one place there wasn't. It's like the first time the Chinese productions heard us all weekend. They're like, we'll troll Roddy a little bit here, just show the one part he's not talking about. So
really doesn't look happy. I mean, like I said before, like he does often do this during series and semifinals and finals, where he's a bit frustrated, but it almost looks like he's in somewhat of a life tilt over here.
Yeah.
Hopefully he will shake this off, of course, as soon as we hop into game 2, but that game definitely did seem to bother him a little bit. Maybe the pause bothered him to some degree as well. You never know.
I mean, this is such a huge series as well. I mean, in terms of difference in prize money between first and second, $110,000 difference.
That's winning 3 WCS events.
Yeah.
Which comes down to winning like 14 best of 3s each or something. So basically winning here or not would make Serral's entire year already so much better. And of course, so far in this year, there hasn't been too much to celebrate yet for Serral, but he also hasn't played in that much. He did play at WCS Winter, and he's still going strong in that event. He's currently in the top 8, and that tournament will continue soon as well, where some of the very best players in Europe will duke it out with each other in a really cool format. Of course, they actually will have a big round robin. I personally cannot wait to see that. I truly love round robin formats, just because I think in general there's always a little bit of luck involved when it comes to group drawings and single elimination brackets as well. I love me some good old big round robin, not a 4-man round robin. No, let all the top 8 players play against each other, because I think that will give a much better representation of who's truly the best.
No, most definitely. It's just fun, right? You get to see every matchup as well. There's so many ups and downs. Like, someone loses a series they shouldn't, you're like, oh, everything's changing. It gets pretty crazy.
Of course, his year has been pretty smooth so far. He's top 8 in GSL, correct?
No, he still has to play. He's got the TVP group.
He's playing after this event.
Yeah, he's got the TVP group with, I want to say, SOS Classic and Trap, maybe?
That's a gnarly group.
Yeah, especially because INnoVation's not exactly the biggest advocate of TVP. He's not a big lover of the matchup.
I mean, the Protosses, they're just dominating every event right now, Wardy.
We got, perfect 50-50 matchup split in the top 4 of WESG here.
No, but I mean, I think other than IEM, of course, IEM was not the result that he was hoping for, but, it happens. And I don't think, I mean, in the end of the day, that is a single day performance for INnoVation. And yeah, that was a gnarly group and things didn't go his way. But he did take the unofficial World Champ title of Serral, and maybe that was a little bit of a confidence booster as well. It does always feel good that even when you have a disappointing tournament, you can leave the tournament with a minor feeling of happiness, and INnoVation definitely did have that, being the first player in almost a year to take an offline series of this man who's trailing 0-1 in the grand finals, hailing from Finland. It is Serral.
And he's up against the blue Terran in the bottom left-hand side from South Korea. Up 1-0, we've got INnoVation. Here on Automaton, a map which we always talk about being that little bit larger. It's a little bit deceiving, I feel. When you first see Automaton, it's not a map you kind of look at straight away. You're like, ooh, it's a King's Cove or Year Zero. I tell you what, this drone.
That's weird.
That's not what you expect to see.
Proxy hatchery at the gold. Serral is wearing his cheesy shoes today. I'm actually pretty shocked to see this. To see him switch it up on Kairos Junction did not surprise me that much, because that can just be a pretty tough map. But I think in general this is a more macro-oriented map, and I don't think there are many Terran players out there where Serral would do this kind of opening against. And yeah, Serral is known to switch it up. He's definitely not a predictable player, but back-to-back weird, strange openings is something I don't see that often.
No, he's definitely one who falls back to the macro play usually when he's down. And this is, I mean, this is one of the maps he lost to INnoVation on in IEM.
Yep.
But it was one of the maps where, again, he lost like 7 queens to a 2-1-1. Like, 2-1-1 builds don't do anything nowadays, right? They like clean up a couple creep tumors. So to lose 7 queens, he was so far behind in the first place. So I don't know, like a very interesting opening. I mean, how do you even use this gold base? Generally, roach roaring, build some roaches.
I would say
aggressive.
this has to be a Ravager opening, right? Like,
yeah, because you need some sort of aggression to stop that catch just going down.
I mean, in before the Bailing boss, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. I'm definitely sure there are a couple of INnoVation fans out there right now that will be like, Serral's clearly afraid of INnoVation's late game. Well, if this continues, that's absolutely the case. But let's not really jump to too many conclusions yet. Is this Reaper going to see the creep? It's close.
I think he sees the edge of it, right?
Yeah, but that's kind of hard to spot,
Yeah,
though.
it's one of those things where you see it, but you actually don't really see it all of the time.
Because you're just not really paying attention. Like, it depends a little bit on your monitor settings and stuff like that. I have the feeling that INnoVation did not see this yet. Still just, oh my god, he's double CCing.
Okay, he's definitely not seen this, but now he sees the lack of a command hatchery here. Instant cancel. Yeah, that one gas obviously means that there's no kind of super fast factory coming through as well. Just now the factory getting started. Wow, this is already amazing for Serral because, let's face it, there's still no second gas.
What do you think about the fact that he cancelled the one on the low ground that was 80% done?
That's obviously, it really is safety, right? Because I guess you don't know exactly how fast it's going to come in. And those two, I don't know though, because it was only 2 lings.
Yeah.
He might have thought it was 6 lings, but he can't know that.
I think he misread it as a 6 ling opening, and he's like, all right, let's not get myself in that position. But that's kind of an interesting scenario. Now, he does get a very quick bunker this time. You know, it's like, yeah, I probably do need a bunker. This Reaper is going to try to get a knowing that Queen is sleeping on the job. Serral will not end up losing a drone here, but that got very close. All right, first Ravages on the way. What a way to start our grand finals. Wow, they definitely did not expect that. Game 1, yeah, okay. Game 2, no, did not see this one coming.
Is this bunker next to the depot so you can hit both of the corrosive bars? That's really nice if that's the case. He gets a Marine as well.
Wow.
I mean, just that, you know, those little bits of something. And obviously, as the Ravager count builds up here from Serral, this gets a lot better for him. And again, that factory being so late, there's no Cyclone yet to push that Overlord back. And Cyclone is the way to open because a Siege Tank just gets corrosive bar down too quickly.
Doesn't seem like it's damaging the depot, though. Not yet, at least. Maybe he needs to put it a little bit more forward, but maybe he doesn't want to take this damage. Serral's going to change his target. He goes for the southern depot instead, and we'll now start working on this reactor as well. But a couple of additional drones were just produced. I feel a bit awkward because I feel like this is not an easy situation to ever transition out of, right? If you're Serral, you need way more than he got so far.
Another round of bars, and that's another depot and a reactor going down. There's the Cyclone to push the Overlord away. So now there's no high ground vision.
Wow.
Oh, full surround on the
massive.
Reaper.
That's massive, because there is almost nothing there protecting the drone line. So that single Reaper actually could have been a huge nuisance for Serral. Gets it quite quickly. Cyclone locks on one of these Ravages. That's a bit annoying, a little bit of damage. I mean, INnoVation is Banshees, though. Don't these Banshees have, like, all the potential in the world?
Right, because they can shut down the Ravager attack. There's a lair now starting, so I think Serral's realizing what he's potentially most afraid of or most vulnerable to here.
He scouted it as well, I believe.
And he's actually got a Spore Crawler coming in at the front because of the creep spread. Wow. That's actually pretty sick, because usually these attacks end pretty soon. But because he's got the gold base and the creep, the Spore will come down. I
must say, if there's one thing I do love about Serral whenever he is cheesy, I feel like he's not that stubborn, right? Like, in a way, he does transition out of builds where we feel like you normally don't transition. That Overlord did indeed spot the tech lab, so knows it's Banshees, stuff like that. And now it just feels that Serral wants to keep INnoVation on a one-base economy for as long as possible, despite the fact there are 2 command centers. A lot of drones are injured there, but I don't think any drones truly went down. So yeah, it just feels like Serral just wants to be annoying here. And I don't know if INnoVation really has the units yet to fight those Queens and fight those Ravages, but maybe if the first tank can siege up on the low ground as well, there's still that Cyclone in the mix. This is going to be very interesting, because Inno's just kind of going for it, wants to already start mining of the low ground. Serral's going to do his absolute best to prevent this for as long as possible. That tank, I mean, where's the first Overlord? I don't see any Overlord, so a tank on the high ground could be very gnarly. Look at the 24 lings, by the way, for Serral.
It's because there's no wall off on the low ground, right? So he knows he can flood through here and deny this, definitely.
Yeah.
And there's no wall off on the high ground. INnoVation didn't rebuild that, so there's potential for even more right here. As we do see another bunker cancel. This is like the third time INnoVation's trying to build this bunker now.
Dream scenario for Serral is that one of these corrosive balls connect with the Banshees. It's incredibly important for INnoVation that he makes sure that that does not happen. We've seen that happen actually a couple of times in high-level StarCraft 2. I think the tank might be in range of that. At least I kind of expected it. It is in range of these Ravagers. The Cyclone goes down, so that's pretty big. But the corrosive balls don't really connect with anything. The Spore Crawl is being kept alive by these Queens.
Pulls it away, but I think the tank on the high ground still has it. There is an Overseer for detection, but no extra damage output. As well, Serral does have access to the mineral line on the low ground. But he's not going to really be able to bust through, but he's still making more lings and more queens. With Roach Speed coming up, it feels like he still wants to go for this.
Yeah, well, at least he's getting in range of that mineral line. Look at that orbital, by the way. The queens are getting a really good fight here against the Banshees. So many additional lings suddenly show up out of nowhere. INnoVation did not expect that, and INnoVation is in trouble. And take a look at that orbital.
Oh my god, it's going to go down, and more lings. Well, they don't have to go up to the high ground. One siege tank just survives.
There was a ling next to it, by the way.
Oh, no.
There was a Zergling next to that tank.
That's brutal, but at the same time,
that's sad for
INnoVation is one base.
That's sad for Inno as well. His tank got stuck. You know, you're spot on. Obviously, if Serral gets that tank, that would have been massive. But at this point, Serral doesn't have to do this anymore. The double corrosive bow in the middle. The double kill on both tanks. And INnoVation is in a world of hurt.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Serral didn't need to run these Zerglings up here, although he does get a few Marines for his efforts. And at this point, Serral's just got so much. He's taken another base back at home, which puts him up to 4 bases, 10 more drones. He knows he's doing fine. I mean, and obviously at this point, he's just got the numbers right.
Yeah, he doesn't really have to go too crazy here anymore. Getting that orbital was massive.
Nice.
That's a bit sloppy by Serral. Nice pickoff for INnoVation, but Inno needs a lot more. Now, you give a Terran player like INnoVation, Stim, maybe a medevac or two, a couple of Marines, and crazy things can happen. The problem is this is not a 2-base Zerg anymore. It's going to be a 4-base Zerg soon. And there is a chance that maybe Serral's going to have to give up on this gold base. But I think he's completely okay with this. This gold base has already done what it's supposed to do. I think that Serral can get a little bit of static defenses as well. I'm not saying spines, but just getting a couple spores to keep medevacs at bay would already be so nice. The only thing that is very easy for us to analyze, and not for Serral, is that INnoVation doesn't have another command center, right? But there is a changeling. That changeling, did it live? It just ran up to the main base.
I think it got picked up.
No, it's next to the tanks.
Right there.
That's actually massive. Yeah. Because if Serral can confirm that there is not another command center, then I think he also knows he doesn't have to take a crazy fight here. Because like army-wise right now, INnoVation can actually win a fight. It's not that likely, but it's absolutely possible. With 26 Marines,
yeah,
he can win a fight.
Yeah, with siege tanks in good positions as well. Serral's posturing, but I mean, he's got 1-1 upgrades on the way. He has no reason to push in, as long as he knows there's no expansion coming up.
Serral really doesn't have to fight here. INnoVation is going to move on pretty deep and green. Even SCVs are coming as well. And that should be the tell for Serral that he really doesn't have to take this fight. A couple of Ravagers coming in from the north side. They're derping around a little bit. In the end, they do get saved. And this is where Serral will evacuate on that gold base. But, you know, INnoVation, I've been in situations like this as well, where you're like, maybe I'm still in this game. And then you go to the other side of the map and you see multiple hatcheries and units coming in from every angle. Inno is just kind of on his last legs here. Does get another somewhat decent fight. Loses a few more SCVs though, but I mean, he's down 34 army supply. Don't forget about those 1-1 upgrades of Serral that are going to kick in as well. Serral's still playing a dangerous game. He really doesn't need to fight. I guess he doesn't want to give up his queens without a fight, but he's been bleeding out a lot of units.
Yeah, he really has, and it's a little scary, but at the same time, he's just in such a good spot, and now obviously INnoVation has so much further still to run across the map.
How many queens does Serral have at home? Does he have any?
I think he has a few, because he's been building a lot of queens throughout the game.
Okay. Well, it's +1. You know, still down 30 supply, but we saw how that previous fight went. Of course, the next fight is going to be a little bit harder. Serral losing a few Overlords here as well. The fact there are still SCVs in the mix here should be a massive tell for Serral. The Roach count and Ravager count is a lot higher, and I think that this is going to be a GG. Serral gets his first map on the board. This is a finals, Marty. I'm really starting to feel it.
You can tell this is a finals as well, because these are not just two players showing up and like kind of throwing out their normal macro builds, right? This is Serral saying, yeah, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. I'm going to have a different strategy every map, and you better keep on wondering what on earth is going on. While INnoVation had the build order advantage in game 1, it was definitely Serral's build order advantage here. The triple CC attempt from INnoVation Yes, he cancelled it pretty quick, but you're still delayed on a gas there.
What if, yeah, do you not think there is a world where, I mean, I want to say that maybe he knew and he just built that another command center as a safety, but he waited quite long to cancel the first one. So
Yeah.
if that was his game plan, he
I
probably...
feel like he cancelled it as soon as he got to the natural, that's why.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I mean, trying to maybe look for an excuse for Inno, but it's a bit unfortunate. Also, INnoVation did a really good job at first, I think, in defending. And I actually think that Inno got himself in a pretty good position at one point where he was really starting to believe in his possibility to defend there. It's just the links, all of those Zerglings, a flood of links, just came out of nowhere, got right on top of the Marines, got on top of a couple of the tanks as well. And that's where I think INnoVation was caught off guard a little bit. Suddenly the Banshees were stuck in a fight they had no business in. Like they were supposed to get out of there. There were multiple queens in a row. There were spores in a row as well. Serral getting the absolute dream engagement there. And I mean, Serral played a dangerous game, man. That felt like one or two things go differently, and you're looking at an 0-2 deficit. And 0-1, Kairos Junction, I think no reason to panic. 0-2, that would have been a completely different ball game. Instead, I think us as viewers, we do win because we're back to an even score. We've got at least 3 more maps, but hopefully, Wadi, all 5.
Hopefully, indeed. We want to see 7 games here tonight as we go through the WESG Grand Finals.
I'm down with 8 as well if Inno forgets that his buildings can float to a corner of the map or something like that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you remembered that, you know.
Keep calm and hit and run.
I like it.
Yeah, cute. Very, very cute.
Another INnoVation fan right there, as we do see Serral mixed in as well.
I mean, this audience has been getting a couple of very good games so far. I've been part of live events where we've had 6 best-of-5s and we've had less to talk about at the end of the day than we've had so far after the 7 games we've seen today. So I'm already a pretty happy neutral customer over here. I think this is a already memorable day of StarCraft 2, but of course it could be a lot more. INnoVation is looking at revenge for his Home Story Cup loss. Serral is looking at his first WSG title and potentially getting on top of the all-time money list in StarCraft 2. Basically for the first time ever for a non-Korean since Morrow won the Intel Extreme Masters Gamescom in 2010 with a bunch of Reapers.
It's just so impressive that Serral has just skyrocketed over that list over the last year or so.
Yeah.
Obviously, he had some prize money before last year, but last year, obviously, it's just gone absolutely crazy.
Yeah, what were his career earnings? I mean, to be honest, in 2017 was already a decent year. There's one more thing that's on the line over here. This is something that I haven't really mentioned yet, but Serral has an incredible track record when it comes to tournament finals. He made it to the finals once at the WCS Jönköping in 2017. He fell against the American Protoss player Neep back then. But since that moment, Serral has won every grand finals he's made it through. Obviously, he's been winning everything, so that may make some sense. But, I mean, that's a crazy stat as well. How often do you see that, Wadi?
I mean, I've definitely heard of players losing every grand final they've been in.
Hey, but those things end as well.
Yeah. No, definitely a thing. But no, I mean, you're right. It's crazy to have that much consistency when you get to the finals, right? Because it's like, you can be good enough to get to the finals, but the other guy's good enough to get to the finals too, and then you still win again and again. Very impressive as we go into game number 3, and what a map we've got here, Roddy.
Yes, I hope this time it's no cheese coming out of this man. Our Finnish Zerg player, it is Serral in the right top.
And in the top left, our blue Terran is INnoVation, 1-1 in the best of 7, and INnoVation wants nothing to do with year 0.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that makes me a bit sad. Well, you know, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There are some weird scenarios where games don't end with proxies, right? Or actually, maybe that's not even that weird. These are things that do happen quite often. But INnoVation is going to return the favor here to Serral. And he's going to be the one that's sending out his SCVs. But this Overlord is on a pretty good path to at least know about this. But one thing that I can say about Serral and some of the games we've seen in the past is even when he scouted proxy barracks of guys like INnoVation and Maru as well, of course, and last year WSG, he doesn't always defend this perfectly. Even some of the foreign Terrans had a tiny bit success against Serral when they proxy wrecks him. I think of guys like Soul and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where it feels like Serral just gets a bit overconfident in his fights, and then the next thing you know, you've lost just a couple too many drones. This is a really important bit of info as the spawn pool just now starts. He sees all 3 barracks, so he knows exactly how many racks it is. He knows it's not really a follow-up of gas or anything at home. It is just straight up Marine.
Serral is indecisive. I saw him send a couple of drones to the low ground, and he pulled them back. on the minimap. Not too many, I believe, but I feel... Okay, he cancelled the gas as well. Serral had a gas before his spawning pool. Serral cancelled that gas as well. A few drones were being pulled. He sent them back. Now they're being pulled again, because of course it is very important for Serral that he makes sure no bunkers go up. This is tough though. These fights are so tricky, so dicey. Even when you scout it, that doesn't mean you're going to have an easy time defending it against somebody as good as INnoVation. I feel like Serral needs way more drones here, by the way.
Yeah, he starts up a spine right away, but 2 SCVs in the Marine felt like they were maybe going to get the kill there real early on. Extra drone showing up now. 8lings in production. Targets the bunker. There's a cancel.
That's good.
Next bunker starts up. Only 1 Marine here for the moment, but then the extra one arrives, and he is getting damage on the spine crawler.
Yeah, the spine has to live, and preferably you want to get that bunker or prevent the bunker from finishing up. The Lings are going to work on that SCV on the high ground. More SCVs coming in as well for INnoVation. So he's pretty damn committed. This bunker will get cancelled, but now it's about the spine crawler. Can INnoVation cancel this spine?
It's going to get really close. I don't think he will. He has to focus on drones and Lings at the moment, and the SCV is going down. The spine finishes. That's huge.
Perfect defense, I think.
And especially with INnoVation pulling extra SCVs already, it's okay for Serral to have lost a little bit. Extra SCVs, he needs to make sure he doesn't get too ahead of himself here, Serral. But he isn't. He's making more Lings.
Extra SCVs. The Queen on the way. 8 more Zerglings are on the way. Serral does not necessarily know about this, but he did see the extra SCVs, even a second spine. Serral is really picking up on something. Probably feels he's like, I'm in such a good position. Let's just make sure I don't throw away this lead. Well, if he spots all the other SCVs, I think there is a Zergling. No, that's an Overlord, actually.
It wasn't in position.
Yeah. Okay, Serral needs to make sure that the Lings are at home as well. I mean, that's so many SCVs and so many Marines that this can still get dicey. INnoVation is going to go for it one more time over here.
Here we go. Serral just a little late to pull anything into this. The drone's nest now starting to come in. The Lings coming around the back. Yeah, good transfuse. Keeps that first spine alive. It's a full surround now, but is it enough? Second spine going to be absolutely big here. Critical to defend as the Marines, though, again, on top of it, there's the next transfusion. It's really close because more Lings are still coming out. No SCVs left for INnoVation, and it finally feels these Marines are starting to drop down dead.
Yep, there are no more SCVs to tank the shots now. The Queens are still alive. They can obviously snipe a few more of these Marines. Where are the extra Lings, though? That is actually starting to get a little bit risky. Now there's finally a Zergling into the main base. Is going to start working on these SCVs. I don't know if that SCV can win the fight, by the way. Maybe if there's a repair.
There's a second one.
Yeah, there's 2 SCVs
but
there.
Even still, stopping SCVs, man, when there's only 2 of them?
I mean, 8 drones against 2. Normally, Serral should have this. Obviously, the longer this goes, there is energy again for a transfuse, isn't there? That looks very close. Yep. And I don't see that spine going down then. Is there a transfuse available? The Queens. Okay, there is your transfuse. That keeps this spine alive. 1 or 2 more Marines drop. The Mules, though, they're still allowing INnoVation to produce quite a few Marines, but the Marines are almost losing all of their HP. The spine may finally go down, but now you're still looking at 2 very healthy Queens. Well, 1 is healthy. The other one has backup.
But now you have high ground, right? And you can just kite away so much more easily. You know what there is on the other side of the map. That 1 Ling got the SCV as well. Yeah. So you know there's just no mining. You just keep building Lings with 8 drones. You've got enough.
Yep, 8 drones versus 1 SCV and a Mule. Seems like 2 Lings or 2 Marines going to go. Is INnoVation actually going to try to turn this into a macro game? He's building an SCV.
He's sending 1 Marine back home to deal with that Zergling, which is just still running around.
That's actually quite funny. Now, once again, it's 2 SCVs. This time INnoVation is on the money. We'll pick off that Ling finally. Serral still working with very little as well. But those Queens, obviously the Queens become more powerful as well, right? The longer this goes on, that means more energy and the less likely it is for Serral to take devastating damage. I do feel like this was an exciting game and it was fun. And maybe INnoVation is still capable of a miracle, but I would have loved to see some ultra late game here.
Yeah, no, most definitely. INnoVation is actually trying to macro as well, right? He's like actually building SCVs and sending his Marines back home. Going to get 1 of them caught here. Those Lings will continue along.
It's actually quite close income-wise. But
of course, Serral builds up so much faster.
Yeah, it's 2 bases against 1, right? So that should allow Serral to really get a proper economy going quite quickly, while INnoVation is going to struggle with that. There's a lot of Lings out on the map at this point. Feels like they're kind of scattered all over the place. With 4 Marines in the main base, there is some micro potential. Maybe you can use some choke points, but if you lose those depots, that's already very painful. If you have almost nothing, losing 2 depots is deadly.
Well, there's a lot of Lings here going straight into the main, and there is just a few Marines and SCVs. I just don't think you win this fight as INnoVation. Maybe in the little gap there between the minerals, only a couple of Lings went around the back, so it's not the best around. But 4 SCVs killed. I mean, it's worthwhile because you also
They
kill
will
this
win
guy.
the fight, I think, in the end there, right? One Link, 2 Zerglings do survive, a few more, 3 Links even.
Yeah.
A few more Links show up, and INnoVation now knows that this is it, man. These 5 Marines, these Navy SEALs have to win the fight there, but that's not going to happen against these Queens on the high ground. GG! Serral will take the 2-1 lead in this best of 7.
One of the more exciting free Rex games I've seen as of late that doesn't just kind of go into a game afterwards, right? Which really does just end at that stage. It felt for a moment that Serral maybe had lost that spine and he was in a bit of trouble. And I do feel there's a couple of moments when he didn't transfuse the spine right away. The Queens didn't get the attacks on the Marines immediately. Drones were a little late pulling. There was just a couple little things, and that can affect games like this.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting micro battle back and forth. Serral, obviously, I love how he pushed the Marines away with the drones and made sure that the Lynx started working on the SCVs. I think getting the first cancel on the bunker with his drones alone was already massive. And then there were a couple of very close moments. Like you said, at one point it felt that if Inno snipes that first spine, and then suddenly all the Marines attack move and the SCVs are there tanking damage as well, I think that was maybe even closer than it looked, and it already looked quite close. But in the end, Serral handled it very well. It's not easy to stay calm when you're playing for, I mean, a ludicrous amount of money. $110,000 difference between winning this tournament and taking second place. But so far, it looks good for the Finnish Zerg, as he has turned around what was a rocky and bumpy game 1, where he looked quite frustrated. He looks a lot more relaxed at this point, Wadi.
No, he's definitely breathing a little sigh of relief. Only 2 maps to go until Serral can potentially win WESG. What does that put Serral at if he wins WESG? Is he actually just the greatest, Roddy? Like, do we call him that at that point?
I feel like it's always hard. Like, and let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? Because then all these words will backfire if Inno now smacks him 3 games in a row. I think that is a discussion that we can have after this grand finals. And I mean, like, obviously, INnoVation has been around longer, so he has seen more ups and downs in his career than Serral, right? Because Serral was not even a full-time player up to basically the end of 2016. I think that's where it kind of all started for Serral. But I think you can make an argument for INnoVation being the greatest player of all time. He's been around for so long. He's been successful over multiple eras, and every single time that people start doubting him or even think that Inno's time is past, he once again bounces back. And I mean, yesterday, all the talk about Maru last year, all Maru's dominance in 2018. In that TVT series, INnoVation didn't just look better. He looked a lot better than Maru. So we're looking at 2 of the all-time greats, and whoever is the greatest, you know what, we'll settle that debate on a rainy day perhaps. But for now, I think it's just awesome to watch these 2 guys clash in a best of 7 with so much on the line. On the left top side, the Finnish Zerg, he's up 2-1. It is Serral.
And that's a 12 pool. What? Bottom right, our Blue Terran INnoVation. 12 pools EVT. You just never see unless it's like a Ravager opening. I mean, maybe.
Does he think he's going to go CC first? Is Serral just gambling here, thinking that INnoVation is going to go CC first?
I mean, that would be the heck of a mind game, wouldn't it?
Yep, I believe we have a little lag spike there as well. This is nuts. This is in the gas there as well. I mean,
okay, maybe it's just Ravagers then.
yeah, it must be Ravagers, right? Because that's, I think, what Serral did against Gumio on this map at the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. Somebody can absolutely quote me on that if I'm wrong, but I have the feeling that he's going to run Ravagers to the other side of the map. And at that point, I remember looking at it, it's like, man, it must be nice being Serral, you know, opening up 12 pool on the largest map in the map pool, which technically doesn't make any sense, opening up Ravager Rush, and then his opponent went Command Center first. INnoVation is not opening Command Center first, guys. I think this is a straight-up disaster for Serral. This map is so big. I don't see this turning into a pretty scenario for Serral. I think best-case scenario is that you get a cancel on the command center on the low ground, and then you better run home with your tail between your legs and hope that INnoVation leaves you alone for the next 5 minutes.
There is so little recovery from this from Serral, right? Because he's one base, he's mining double gas, he's got so little mineral income.
Yep. I mean, right now, INnoVation is almost mining double the amount of minerals that Serral is mining. There is an SCV going out as well. I mean, I do think that Inno will drop his command. Ooh, okay, he dropped his command center. Now spots those 2 Zerglings. But those are odd links, right? Yeah. Even if the links, really even if it's a 16 pool, I don't know if Inno was paying attention there, but even if this is like a 14 or a 16 pool, I don't think those links are supposed to show up that quickly. We're having a few more lag spikes. I hope that's not our feed, Wadi, because we've been part of a lot of funny things today. But
just saw the WESG account having a bit of a lag, so looks as though that may very well be the case, as it looks as though we perhaps have a pause. And
I mean, it's definitely not us guys, because
Yeah.
we're not actually in these games, but
Yeah.
if that's our feed, it's going to be relatively difficult for us to commentate, even though I have a feeling where I know this game is going. And I think if you're an INnoVation fan, you can be pretty pleased with the chain of events so far in Game 4. Whether you saw those Zerglings or not, you got to be quite happy with how the openings shape up against each other.
Yep. It's just a couple of moments here while we figure out what's going on. It may be very possible then the next 20 seconds or so when that account drops out, we might be able to continue. It might be they need to regain because they need that account in game.
Yeah.
So.
It doesn't happen often that entire games are being played out in a grand finals of a tournament without a single observer being part of it. And obviously this observer is probably the one that provides the feed, not just to us guys, so it's not just about us, but also all the other language streams that are out there.
Yep.
I'm sure that our our lovely colleagues, Crank's probably holding down the fort for the Korean stream, Naruto of course for the Germans out there, as we are randomly looking at some eye tracker footage of the previous game.
Pretty cool. We haven't seen too much of this, but yeah, you can see his eyes flicked straight to that proxy racks when he saw it.
Those were the drones,
Yeah.
by the way, that I mentioned, and you see he sends them back now.
Yeah, probably just maybe it's because he saw that one that was a little bit lower in health, and he was like, okay, I don't know, like surely he knows the timings, right? So I think just indecision.
A little bit indecisive, but in the end it worked out. So more eye tracker footage here of that game too. Take a look at Serral. He looks at Marines. He's like, damn, the firepower of those things. Oh, hey, we're back.
Perfect. Well, suddenly there's a bunker, and Ravagers are across them.
Yeah, we missed, so that means that INnoVation most likely just canceled his command center,
Yep.
but Serral's got to give up at this, right? Like, there's just no way.
He's already building drones.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, right, I mean, what do you get done here? You kill 2 supply depots? That's not great.
If you can get 2 depots and a reactor, I think you can be very pleased with yourself. Maybe on top of that, you get a single SCV here and there, and then I think it's a real party, because that's really the most you can hope for.
Barrett's
maybe
going to take quite a bit of damage.
Barrett's- Well,
Yeah, no way does he actually... Well, I guess the Ravagers can actually straight up attack
I'd
it.
go
Wow.
for the reactor, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 depots and a reactor, right? I think
That's not bad, no. I mean, Innovation
Wow.
supply blocked, command
Yeah.
center not building. Okay.
I don't think I'd be happy if I'm Serral. Imagine if you somehow get the Cyclone. But
Yeah, that'd be absolutely ridiculous.
well, Serral once more. He's going to land a couple of corrosive balls on top of this bunker. And now Serral will get a couple of SCVs. And I guess that's the difference between us and Serral. But now he also ends up losing a Roach and a Ravager that was morphing into a Roach. Once again, 2 games in a row. Wow, oh my goodness. That's a bit sloppy. Because these Reapers, they have so much potential. I cannot emphasize enough on how big it is to not lose that Reaper. Go back to Automaton. If that Reaper stays alive, do you know how annoying that Reaper can be from the other side of the mineral line on the gold base? Serral picking off these Reapers before there is even anything that can technically deal with that Reaper, that's massive. And Inno is making sloppy mistakes there.
Yeah, it's a little bit sloppy, but overall still pretty good, right? 25 drones to 18.
Yeah, no, I still love his
Yeah,
position, don't get me wrong.
Fantastic. I mean, you called it from the second he put down the 12 pool, right? It was just, I guess the second we saw it wasn't command center first. It just doesn't look good for Serral, and
No.
it really is. And Cloak Banshee on the way up as well. I mean, INnoVation setting up into an attack which is just going to be so powerful. So many forms of harassment you can get going here.
So King's Cove was one of those long macro games that INnoVation did win against Serral at the Intel Extreme Masters. Now, I was busy casting a different series at that point. Did INnoVation open CC first?
No, because he had pretty fast Hellions when the run by killed like 20 drones.
Okay.
I think,
Oh,
or thereabouts.
Curious
So
decision.
it's interesting, right?
Unless, I mean, Serral just felt it, maybe. Serral just hoped for it. I mean, it's somewhat playable for Serral. I just don't love his position. But if he doesn't mess up too badly against these Cyclones, even though obviously the potential is in the side or on the side of INnoVation much rather than it is on the side of Serral, there's so little that Serral can do here. Serral can only hope that Inno messes up. There are Zerglings. They're going to try to get a surround here on these Cyclones. The Ravagers going to show up as well. If Serral can get both Ravagers here, which he will, all right. Well, that's a little more than you normally get, I think, as a Zerg player. But there is a Cloak Banshee heading towards the main base. Spore Crawlers only now. Wardey going down.
Yeah, and that cloak is already done, so the first Queen's in a lot of trouble. And INnoVation then going to swap onto the drones, realize there's some free pickings up for grabs here, so multiple drones are dropping, and that's actually a depot wall already with a tank behind it. So Serral, but he's going around the left-hand side, so he might be able to jump on the tank, but there's so many Marines here as well.
Too many Marines keeping that tank safe. It almost felt that INnoVation was like one of those lottery winners where you can get 1 minute of free shopping in a supermarket, and he's like, what do I go for? Do I go for the Queen? Do I go for the Spore? And in the end, he's like, no, you know what? Drones. Drones are valuable, and I should be able to get as many of those in my shopping cart as quickly as possible. I mean, you got this love, everything for... What is Serral going to do? Nidus, I guess?
I think you go for like the hopeless Nidus that fails and you just get into the next game.
Okay.
I feel at this point, like, you're so far behind, and obviously Serral's good enough to know that, right? Trying some, like, cheeky corrosive bars and maybe catch a Banshee. Like, if that's what you're hoping for...
Hey, it runs out of energy real soon. That Banshee runs out of energy real soon, but the Queens are taking so much damage. Queen does go down. Banshee lives. Yeah, I don't know what you're supposed to do if you're Serral at this position. All right, Wadi. You know what? What about another spawning pool? As soon as the
I love the second spawning pool.
Yeah. If you guys missed the first best of 5, then that comment made absolutely no sense. But if you guys do go back and you watch Maro versus Scarlet, you'll appreciate that one, perhaps. I mean, 3 Banshees are going to show up. This is almost painful for Serral, right? Okay, 1 Banshee does finally go down, but what's the answer against this army? Is there an answer?
I mean, another Queen went down as well, right? So the Banshee's still just going to sit there, and another Banshee shows up like you were mentioning, and there's no anti-air. There's an army pushing across the map that looks mighty, mighty terrifying. And INnoVation's already building a 3rd CC.
So on both maps that Serral lost, which were the long macro games during the Into Extreme Masters, Serral went for a very wonky opening this time, right? Even Automaton. Yes, Serral won it, and that's great news for him. Well done, and the execution of his attack was very good in the end. But it was crazy and it was weird. This one, I think, is even stranger because these are risks. Like, Serral is a player that is not predictable, and I do love that about him, and I do like that he likes to switch it up. And Serral is going to try to make one last hold here. But, guys, the writing is pretty much on the wall here for Game 4, and I think Serral knows that as well. There is no stopping these Marines and tanks. What I like about Serral is that he's not predictable, but this is not even not being predictable anymore. Yeah. This is just a blind, straight gamble, and that is something I don't see that often out of Serral.
I don't think I've ever seen Serral more than one game in a series as well, right? I mean, it's just so aggressive from him. That's 3 out of 4 games, and of course on Year Zero we didn't get to see him really make a choice because INnoVation went aggressive. And in terms of a series, it's pretty fun and exciting. Every game looks a bit different, some very different choices. But I feel like as a Serral fan, you gotta be worried because he's got to be running out of builds. And if he's genuinely afraid of macro, well, what else do you do then?
Yeah, you're gonna run out of steam. And yeah, the Automaton build, it looked kind of cool, and he was able to pull it off. The Kairos Junction one, we could get behind as well, because this is a map that I think plays pretty well towards the strengths of INnoVation when it comes to tanks, getting good positions and stuff. But this one on King's Gulf, yeah, if you're a Serral fan, you can't really be feeling that, man. That's just weird, and that's just not just, I'm going to switch it up. Like, no, that's just, I'm rolling the dice over here completely. I'm closing my eyes, and it's not even that it's like, yeah, I feel really good about this dice roll. It's like, no, there is one scenario where I think this is really good for me, and I hope you're doing that. And that's not even something that INnoVation is particularly known for. So that's why I think it's such a, I don't know, it's just odd to me.
Bit more eye tracker action here, back from game number 1 on Kairos Junction. Again, it's pretty fun, and I've seen a couple moments where you see the players kind of look at something, then they look back and do something about it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love these little segments, actually.
Yeah, it's some good.
What is Inno looking now? He's like, oh, what a beautiful.
Yeah. He's like, do I leave? Do I get back in there? Watch the replay.
Take another look at this.
Yeah, this one's pretty fun from Serral, right? You can see him like looking at his ravages quite a lot, and obviously looking at the health of units and queen energy and so on, and realizing he's a pretty dead, and he apparently just looks around the map as well. All right. So yeah, hopefully we're gonna get back in game very soon with our next game. Obviously 2-2 tied up.
Gonna look at that spine soon.
Yeah.
Gonna look at that spine. This was actually already after the most exciting moment happened. I think at this point, Serral started to feel very good about it. There was that previous fight with the additional SCV showing up that I felt was really close. And I was like, oh my goodness. If Inno gets on top of that spine, things get very, very dire here for Serral.
Yeah, no, that was a real moment. I actually skipped a heartbeat, I think, because I actually really thought Serral had this. And yeah, INnoVation just hit before the second spine was ready. Those few moments, man. That one second was so annoying as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Because he actually went back and got that SCV that was low.
It won that fight, and then the other SCV has to turn around. And of course, eventually the writing was on the wall here for INnoVation, because he simply didn't really have a way to macro his way out of this. It's been a funny series. Now, I didn't think the series that people necessarily expected, especially because it just doesn't feel like a Serral series so far, right?
No.
Especially if you look at Serral, the other matchups. I think ZVP, ZVZ, it's so macro-oriented. And it's always about, as long as things stay normal, he's going to be okay. As long as he knows what's happening, the longer the game goes, the better it is for Serral. Maybe Yeah, those games at IEM definitely messed with his confidence in a way. And a lot of people, especially when you're on Camp Serral, people really felt that Serral probably learned from those games and has adjusted and probably became stronger. So far, my neutral observation is that's not the case. And I actually think those games struck some fear into his ability to perhaps play super late game against INnoVation.
No, he definitely doesn't seem like Serral right now. This was
Wow,
a
those
brutal
tank
fight.
shots, by the way. Did you
Yeah.
see all those Marines getting blown up as well on the ramp? All right, guys, we've got at least 2 more maps, but hopefully for all of us, we get to see 3 more. And hopefully we get to see some longer games as well, even though this has been a fun finals, I think, so far. But of course, we want more. We want explosive fights. We want to see 4, 5 base economies, and we want to see it come down to the wire. And we want to see if Serral did make some adjustments in this late game, or if this man is just unbeatable once he reaches a phase where he has 12 goals or more, and a bunch of liberators and plenty of bases. I almost felt like Serral tried to give him a sneak peek there, but I'm pretty sure they're like on opposite sides of the stadium at this point.
Yeah, they're. I mean, we saw it yesterday when they had to go and shake hands, and it was like, you know, Serral leaves the booth, and 2.5 minutes later he arrives.
Fun.
Almost took him as long as it took those Ravagers to cross King's Cove.
Yeah, well, I always wonder what's going through their minds right now, right? Like, if you're INnoVation right now, it's probably like, I shouldn't have 3 racks on year 0, man. He's like, I've got this. He's probably going to do something weird. And Serral probably like, why didn't you CC first? And it's like, well, he doesn't do it that often as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. INnoVation, not one to kind of take a lot of those unnecessary risks a lot of the time, I don't think, you know.
No, that kind of goes back to his openings as well, right? Like, I think if there is one thing that's very good about getting the quick stim in this matchup is that you're pretty safe against most builds, right? Like, what do you really die against? It's more just that you fall a little bit behind in the macro games. But so far, Serral not capitalizing on that strength of Zerg. Like you said, the 2-1-1 opening, yeah, it used to be crazy, and it used to pick up 48 links in the hands of Bjorn. But that was when Bjorn was going up against Violet and stuff, you know, and WCSNA or some of those early BlizzCon rounds, I mean. But you just don't see the opening that often anymore, I think, in general. Now, if Terran pushes back creep, let's say you get a queen. You get 2 queens. It's like, yeah, that's almost as good as you can hope for. And then you look at the work account, you're like, well, let's hope the mules make up for that, right? That's in general what 2-1-1 is at this point. And of course, if you don't watch Starcraft that often, the 2-1-1, we mean the 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport opening, where Terran players don't rely on Hellions or Banshees to do the damage. No, it's all about getting 16 Marines out with that stim upgrade as quickly as possible. But we haven't really seen much of that yet, other than on Kairos Junction, and that worked out very well because Serral's build didn't shape up that well against it.
Nope. Really did not. Thought for a moment we had some background sounds then. We were getting in game, but seems as though not just yet. Serral giving the screen a couple funny looks. A little bit of something here and there. Got some music, so we should be into this any moment now. So what we got left? Cyber Forest as a map. We've got Port Alexander, right? What's the map I'm missing?
We've got Cyber Port Alexander and
New Repugnancy.
Yep.
So they're kind of standard / smaller maps.
I think New Repugnancy is a good one for Inno. I think Cyber Forest can be a good one for Inno because it is small, but it's also kind of good for links, right? Especially, I mean, if you think back of Rogue versus INnoVation, it was at IEM Katowice. I don't think you casted that one because it's mainstream, but 91 drones, pure link bane. Just not a couple, but it was an insane amount. I think in a 10-minute game, like 400 Zerglings went down or something. But for now, we are going back to, I would say, the most normal of the 3 maps that are left. Port Alexander in the right bottom side. The reigning BlizzCon champion, it is Serral.
And in the upper left, Blue Terran from South Korea, INnoVation.
No drones heading out yet. No SUVs heading out yet. I am I'm pleasantly surprised at this point in a nice way. Let's take a look at some of these WSG logos that are being slapped across the map. I hope that we are going to leave the craziness behind at this point, and I hope we just get to see some good old normal StarCraft. I think both players have switched it up plenty. I think Serral a lot more than INnoVation. I think more blame is on Serral for the way that these games have played out up to this point than Inno. Inno, of course, maybe got a little carried away on year 0, but I would say the score is 3-1 in weirdness in favor of Serral. Let's go ahead and play some StarCraft.
Yeah, let's macro.
Yeah.
You know, let's see who really, 2-2. Some odd things have gone every player's way. Let's see what happens when you guys go up to like 70 workers. Let's see what happens when we have drops in play, Serral counterattacks, and all of that good stuff. As for the moment, Hatch, Gas, and Pool looking to be a Reaper expand from INnoVation. I mean, it's a hopeful start.
Yeah, no, everything. This is kind of the start that I expected in maybe 5 or even 6 of these games if we would go to a regular best of 7 all the way to the rubber match grand finals. But I'm kind of happy right now to just see. You know, sometimes when you cast the same opening 17 times in a row, you're like, oh, I hope they switch it up once. And at this point, I'm like, can we go back to normal?
Yeah, you guys don't need to switch up that much. You know, we can talk the same opening a couple of times.
I know, like, you know, it doesn't have to be PVZ or Oracle opening, because I know that's when Wadi starts losing it a little bit. But no, I'm happy to see it, and it's not that we hate it. I know some players will be like, oh, I love the Stranger games, and of course we do too. And I absolutely love it when players keep each other honest and throw a curveball in every now and then. It's just that I don't want to see a best of 7 full of Strange games. I do want to say I want to see these players push each other to the limit. And that does often happen a little bit more in those 10, 11, well, preferably 15, 16, 17-minute games where, you know, it truly comes down to the multitasking, the upgrades, the great engagements, because I do feel like that is, in the end, the beauty of StarCraft 2.
And what a huge map this is for the match, because the winner of this goes up to match point, right?
Yeah, twice, technically.
Yeah, exactly. Then you've got 2 maps to win 1 time. And that's obviously puts so much pressure on your opponent. It gives you that little bit of freedom as well. Obviously still nerve-wracking, but definitely in the better spot.
Yep.
By the way, all the WSG Grand Finals so far have gone to 7 games, haven't they?
Yeah, Maru TY was a 4-3. That's actually a fun fact. I didn't think about that yet. And of course, last year, Maru versus Dark went 4-3 as well. I do believe that, like, Maru was behind last year, but I think TY was technically always ahead, right? Wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I'll double check that for you, since you're bringing up these random facts, but I don't think TY was trailing. Obviously, it was brought to 3-3 if it went to all 7 games, as his Reaper is trying to be annoying. But yeah, Maru last year with the comeback, despite being down, I think TY never went down.
Yeah, Maru was down. He decided proxy 2 or 3 racks a couple times in a row. You know, casual $100,000 extra because he decided to build a few racks across the map. Cloak Banshee going to be the choice here from INnoVation as the tech lab drops on the factory and keeps the barracks on the reactor, by the way. So no Hellions. This is something that's abusable by Serral, and he's already making 6 lings. If he makes a few more lings...
And he just runs them into the natural at a certain point.
A lot of opportunity, but he does get supply blocked by losing that Overlord.
There's an Evo chamber going down, so... Seems like things are screaming more and more macro. Yeah, losing that one quickly is a little bit painful. TY actually was down 2-1. So he wasn't down 3-2, but he was down 2-1 in that 2016. So yeah, grand finals in WESG have delivered over the last 2 years. And so far, this obviously is shaping up to be a pretty good one. But now it really comes down to the wire. Let's see if we can get some good old long drawn-out games. The Banshees, of course, were incredibly effective. This is interesting as well, but the Banshees were incredibly effective on King's Cove, but that was a bit, you know, unique, guys, because normally Serral's tech is a little more developed than it was on that map, because Serral went for that super strange opening.
Spores starting up right away. Tell you what, I've seen INnoVation a couple times with these Marine Tank Banshee openers turn into just like a Marine Tank Banshee push pretty early in the game. So that's something Serral has to keep his mind on, not be too greedy on the drones, make sure he has some sort of unit defense set up.
How do you feel about this quick carapace?
It kind of covers him. I guess it kind of makes sense because he's expecting a lot of Marines, right? It's like a 2-1-1 where, because the Marines fire a lot on the Lings and the Lings are generally taking more shots than they're dealing, it kind of helps the Lings have a bit of survivability.
All right. So you feel like, in a way, this is Serral absolutely adapting to the opening that...
yeah, I think so. Like, seeing the barracks stay on the reactor, he may not have known it was a 2-1-1 or like a 1-1-1, but I think the Marine production.
And obviously, he's kind of expecting it as well after the previous games, right? These guys have history with each other. They are not strangers to one another. So INnoVation is moving out with one of those quick builds. But the link count is already, I would say, at a reasonable number. It needs to be a little bit higher. And of course, it's important that the Queens are in a good position. That's a good scout for Serral, who had 1 more drone on the way, but now fires up 14 more Zerglings. Serral's up 8 workers, but he needs to get as many links out as possible. Carapace is, I would say, 75, 80% done. I think things on paper look more than all right here. Where is INnoVation going with these units? All right.
Let's just siege the tanks up on the high ground, try and hit that 3rd base.
What do you think about this? I feel like it's kind
of
of weird.
It wastes time, right? Like, what are the Marines going to do there? Queens take a few shots, but they got transfusions. I like the Lings counterattacking, by the way.
As long as these Queens don't go down, I think this is more than okay. Serral's going to see if there is a wall here. Yes, there is a wall. 3 Banshees flying around. So far, I think Serral's looking quite good. Spore Crawl actually revealing those Queens a little bit for the left side. Now, do Queens Two queens
Yeah,
do go down.
2 queens for Banshee, and the other 2 Banshees are very low. If you could kill those, it almost makes up for the queens, but so far not so much.
So INnoVation absolutely getting some value out of his push at this point. The one thing I'm worried about for INnoVation is that those tanks are stuck.
Yeah.
And I think those tanks are going to go down. And then
Hey, is Serral just going to make a Bane Burst here?
And then, yeah, I actually wouldn't hate that too much. Well, here it is. The Lynx were a little bit late to the party. One more queen goes down, by the way. The Marines are in a good position, but normally Serral should absolutely have the numbers here. That's kind of an ugly fight by Serral. Oh, my goodness.
Wow, he just lost everything. I mean, yeah, I was totally with you. I thought he comes in, he surrounds, he wins the fight. Maybe goes and counterattacks, and now he just lost all of his lings.
Of course, like sick positioning by INnoVation there, but Serral really messed that up a bit. All of his queens were clumped up all the time in the first place, so he was eating a few more shots, big shots as well than he was supposed to. And other than that, it just felt that the lings were derping. Of course, once again, INnoVation was using his Marines as a body block there, but yeah, Serral could have done a better job in keeping those queens alive. He had so much energy. If you space out those queens, tanks don't kill queens very quickly, unless all of them are indeed clumped up. Well. Now Inno is actually going to go for a rescue mission, by the way. Imagine if those tanks get out of there, Wadi.
Yeah, well, a great amount of pressure he's been able to put on. Still hitting the mineral line here and there as well. And it's obviously just so frustrating for Serral. He's only being capped at 60 drones. It's not a lot of work, as he kind of wants to bust this down one more time. Now that he's got Bane speed, he's going to run into this. The medevac's going to show up just in time to save some of the Marines. The tanks are abandoned. But still, good save from INnoVation, who has another push coming. It just feels like Serral's losing so much.
Yeah, Serral definitely lost too much. He miscalculated that first engagement, or it just went terribly wrong. Either way, INnoVation went for a very interesting position to siege up, but it worked out in a massive way. Serral definitely a bit behind at this point. Should say there is some potential to still get back out there. But of course, with INnoVation taking that position on the high ground, he also forced Serral to take his fort base over here. Now Inno's going to get a few more tanks, gets the cancel almost immediately. Serral's not even bothered in trying to keep that hatchery alive. And this is not looking good for Serral, man. Look at the 1,000 minerals in the bank as well, 1,000 gas. It just feels like Serral cannot get things going so far here.
He's got a Hydra Den up, but hasn't really had a chance to make many of those. Finally, we see some on the way, but INnoVation's on that point where he's got the momentum. He's pushing forwards. It feels like he's just not going to stop pushing forwards.
Yep. Does he have a 4CC? No, right?
No, not yet.
So it's just a double factory going up. The 2-2 upgrades are on the way for...
Hey, did he not have combat shields, though?
Doesn't look like it.
No, I think he might have forgotten that. So that's kind of a big deal.
Well, maybe give Serral the time that he needs, right? Serral is going to throw down his infestation pit. There is that Fort Command Center, by the way. There's your combat shield upgrade as well. But, I mean, INnoVation has done a phenomenal job in keeping Serral on the 3 hatcheries for as long as he did. He's still got these tanks here as well. I mean, I was a bit confused about the movement and the army positioning of INnoVation, but it paid off in a very, very big way up to this point.
No, absolutely. And I kind of wonder if Serral kind of had to go and fight that. I kind of like the idea of maybe Banelane busting while, like, there was a lot of units trapped there. Tries to get us around here, but the medevacs just keep that so safe. And obviously, off of creep, the Hydras are never going to get underneath boosted medevacs. So that's going to be just, again, I mean, INnoVation just keeping an army down the bottom with that ramp and a couple of tanks. It's so hard to push up into it. And Serral just says, yeah, I'm going to try and go high, probably get some Vipers out to help deal with the siege tank count.
Queens are getting chased down by these Marines, taking quite a bit of damage once again. But good save this time by Serral. Banelings trying to roll forward and connect with the Marines. That does not happen. Would obviously be nice if Serral could maybe start working on the debris on the south side, and he can eventually flank that army. The only good thing for Serral in the end about this start is that he did finally get those 2 tanks. Like, the Marines getting out is nice for INnoVation and all, but I think the tank count is a little bit more important. Serral's going to check to see if INnoVation is already mining off 4 bases. That's not the case, but he will spot this command center floating over. Good position there on that tank as well. Gets a nice shot off on these Zerglings. I mean, Serral's still in this, and he does have +2 armor, right? That's something. And there is Hive Tech on the way. The Spire feels a little bit late. That's going to be kind of desynced. Serral's had money in the bank as well, almost all game long.
Yeah, just not quite finding a way to spend everything that he's got. Wonder if he wants to keep some of that to almost just spend as he hits on Hive. Spire being pointed out to us here, as Roddy just mentioned, though it's not going to be synced up for a greater
I
Spire
know,
right
that's
away.
the thing, right? Especially if you have money in the bank, you expect that Spire to go down a little bit quicker. Now, Serral is pretty smart in general, that sometimes he feels he cannot get Broodlords out yet. Wow, 4 Vipers. Okay, so it's just going to be mostly for the Vipers at first. Broodlords can come in later, I guess. Good job there for these Hydras shutting down this medevac. But this is where things get interesting, right? INnoVation is close to maxing out. He's starting his 3-3 upgrades, but he's going to move these tanks forward as well. Serral is going to try to get some magical flank, perhaps. What I sure that Serral would love to fight with at least those 4 Vipers, but maybe Adreno Glands as well.
Yeah, he's kind of postured. I don't expect him to like run in for a big surround because he definitely wants either INnoVation to attack into him or for at least to have the Vipers to throw down those blinding clouds.
This is going to be so interesting, so tense. It really comes down to the execution between these two at this point. Vipers have a little bit of energy, so Abducts can be big, but of course blinding clouds can even be bigger. There are Zerglings running around in the middle of the map. Both players are maxed out. Wardy, this is what we wanted. This is what we get.
Here we go. Lingbane Hydra coming in from the right. The Ling run by the way, goes all the way up to the natural, but the Warloff is there. Just going to go for a bit of production. And it looks as though that's actually a couple medevacs there. They just boost away in time.
They're very clumped up, by the way, these tanks. These tanks are very, very clumped up at this point.
He doesn't expect Vipers, right?
Yeah, well, he's spacing them out a little bit more right now, and that's the right call for INnoVation. This SCV line is a little bit exposed, so these Lings can absolutely do damage. They have +1. Adreno finishes up in 10 seconds as well. INnoVation getting further and further forward. Serral, what's it going to be? It's going to be blinding clouds, but there are so many tanks.
Oh, he hits a lot of blind clouds on the top, though. A lot of tanks caught up in that. Bane's finishing and not all running forwards just yet. There's a lot of Hydras on the bottom side of this, as Serral will back away. INnoVation loses a lot of tanks, though, and 7 SCVs to the run by, but he is on top of the 5th base.
Yep, and now this is also going to allow, I think, INnoVation to send those reinforcements to the other side of the map. And they're very close, by the way, to these tanks, so that is nice. There is still energy on these Vipers, so maybe some Ducks could be big here for Serral. INnoVation is still maxed out. The 3-3 upgrades are getting close to finishing up as well, as one tank gets abducted. Serral does not want to give up this 4th base.
No, he really does not. Bio still just sitting on the edge of the creep, which has been pushed back quite a bit. INnoVation asking for a pause. That's not a pause. As looks like Serral's going to pause for him in the end here, so a little bit of a awkward time to pause.
So 5th base got cancelled. Is Serral already rebuilding a 5th on the south side?
He's got a base on the bottom side coming up, yeah.
Okay. So that 4th is big. Serral, by the way, seemed quite confident that he can still defend that, because I just saw him use his Vipers on his hatchery. And now, if you're afraid of losing a base or you think it's going to get close, normally you don't really want to drain its HP. But of course, it's all about that Viper energy. He did get quite a few tanks indeed, but Inno is still pretty much maxed out. And also, since he took care of that first Ling run by, and I think this second Ling run by is being taken care of as well, he can still reinforce. And actually, it's pretty smooth for Inno to reinforce that position. Doesn't take long for the bio units to join the fight at all.
No, definitely not. INnoVation, I mean, this is the thing. When you get that advantage early in the game, now he can just keep up this momentum all the way through. And yeah, okay, some Vipers are showing up, but there's no kind of super late game really being set from Serral.
Great Aspire is done, I think, by the way. But he doesn't have money. At this point, I don't think Serral's dreaming about Broodlords. I mean, he might be dreaming about it. He's just not going to get him. I like the Fusion Core, by the way. That gives me the idea that maybe Inno's not going to be super stubborn to end things here. Link still being annoying. Links have 2-2 upgrades at this point, by the way, guys. Good job by the Queen, soaking up some damage. Here we go, one more time. Vipers going forward, landing blinding clouds, but there are so many tanks still.
Yeah, there's still quite a few on the bottom side, and he's not going to kill all of them off as the blinding clouds fade. And Serral's units are just dying off here, as he just can't really find a proper way to fight this.
No, it really did not feel like that was good enough. And now more Banelings getting picked off as well. Tanks are getting a couple of very juicy shots off as well. There are 34 more Lings on the way. But Serral really needs to get a victory here. A couple Lings coming in from the north side could maybe be big, because there aren't that many bio units there anymore. So I think a couple of Lings from the northeast side, maybe that's the way for Serral to finally break this, but INnoVation is doing a phenomenal job in controlling his bio units. The Vipers!
Oh, just getting pulled away in time. Now they're going to drop down another couple of blinding clouds, but again, Serral kind of runs in. You can just see INnoVation has the numbers so comfortably to keep holding this off. The tanks come out of blinding cloud. They can fire once more. The Hydras get pushed back. A Queen picked off at the front, and Serral's supply drops further and further away from that of INnoVation's.
Yep, he's still got workers, and he's still got a little bit of money in the bank, but he's just not capable of spending it. There are a couple of Corruptors in the mix now, so maybe these Corruptors will start getting useful. The Fusion Core is done, but I don't think we have advanced ballistics yet, but Serral's going to have to give up on this base. There are no more drones left. Maybe want to keep those Overlords alive as well. I mean, Broodlords can absolutely buy time for Serral, and that can maybe still drag this game on. I love how that comments is like, whoa, a Zergling? I'm out of here.
Yeah, I've seen what those can do with adrenal glands, Roddy. I'm not landing anywhere near that thing. Well, Corrupt is on the way up, a few broods, but again, at this point, there's just so much potential for INnoVation to deal with it.
Well, I mean, it's still INnoVation is giving himself a rather defensive setup, right? So there is a chance that even 2 or 3 Brood Lords can at least push his army back. And as long as this game goes on, I do believe Serral's still in this game. It's just that maybe INnoVation is not totally aware of the timing on these Brood Lords, and of course the Liberator is going to help out. By the way, Inno is slacking a bit on his advanced ballistics. That's something that I feel like could have been done already, but he hasn't started it yet. But INnoVation still maxed out. The first Broods are out though, Wadi.
Yeah, he's got them, and it looks as though INnoVation backs away from them for a moment, although still bringing tanks forward, so he's not backing away altogether. He's not that afraid, Roddy. No. He just up his libs a bit further forwards too, and he is ready to keep pressing into this. Those Broodlords, though, going to cause some friendly fire from the tanks.
Yeah, I mean, INnoVation's army looks massive. Serral's getting pushed into a corner. The hatchery is taking a lot of damage. There are Vikings being produced now as well, so the Vikings can obviously always click on these broods. A couple of abducts on the Liberators, but Serral ends up losing 9-10 drones and a base. And look at these broods. They are just pushed into the corner. Look at the Hydras and the Banes as well.
Yeah, absolutely nowhere for them to go. They're coming back in, jumping on top of these siege tanks, Lings, Hydras. Well, they are going to get through a lot of the tanks, but at the end of the day, is it going to be enough?
Is there enough anti-air left for Serral? I feel like Serral can kill these Liberators. Now the Marines feeling confident enough that they can stim forward. They will get surrounded. 2 broods will go down. And Serral feels he's too far behind after being down 12 workers and losing 2 of his bases. INnoVation takes the 3-2 lead over Serral. And that's Serral's angry. Serral's like, you know what? He's like, I've got 3 more where that came from. He's like, ends. And it's actually...
He's summoning his inner ends. Have we ever seen this level of Serral before?
You know, in the old days, whenever MMA took off his jacket, he kind of leveled up. That's when you know it was serious business.
Yeah. All right, well, Serral going to try and level up here as he's down 2-3 now. He was down in the Home Story Cup finals as well, right?
Yep.
2-3, so...
Yep, correct. INnoVation also had a 3-2 lead over Serral. What was that, in November? Last November?
Yep. So INnoVation has another chance now to take Serral down in the best-of-7 series. Once again, with 2 match points on his hands, INnoVation truly is in control of the series. With New Repugnancy and Cyber Forest left to play as well, like you said, they're not really maps which you look at and you're like, oh, well, Zerg can just get away with anything here. Cyber Forest definitely a bit smaller, push potential, ramp potential to use. Crowd goes wild as they come on screen, actually.
It was a really fun game, but I think one of the absolute key moments was that first push, right? With the 2 tanks and the Marines. And once again, cannot emphasize enough, I think INnoVation did a phenomenal job there, using those Marines as body blocks, making sure the Lings just can't get those wraparounds. But I absolutely also believe that was a 2-way street. That was not just INnoVation doing things right, that was also Serral messing up a little bit. A couple of errors on the side of Serral there were not caused by INnoVation's great play. Those were just unforced errors by Serral.
No, most definitely. I mean, that fight on the top side, I don't even know why you need to fight that so soon, right? And even, it kind of felt like maybe he would be able to do it, but then again, messed it up a little bit. So either way, not pretty. And Serral needs to sharpen up because there's no more room for mistakes. Absolutely not. I wonder, like, I mean, especially after he opened the way he did in the first few games as well, does he go back to something crazy aggressive, or?
I don't think so. I really think that time has passed, and I don't think this is a game, but obviously that can feel good to lose this one. Crucial one, Game 5, always crucial in best-of-7s, but I still think now you just got to believe, and you got to dig deep down inside. You're still Serral. You're still the man who has won 6, 7, 8 offline tournament finals in a row. And Serral's no stranger to being down in tournament finals. It's not just against INnoVation last Home Story Cup, guys. Also think back of the GSL versus the World against Stats. Serral was down in that final. Think back of WCS Montreal. Serral was down and almost out in that final against Raynor. So Serral's been here before. He's no stranger to the things that he's feeling right now. But I must say, I mean, maybe I felt this the way it did pass, but it feels a bit different this time. It really feels like he's going up against a man, I don't want to say that has his number, because then I think you're getting too dramatic and too carried away. Yep. But Inno does really seem to have the upper hand when it comes to some of the mind games at this point. And just maybe that last series as well, still carrying over. It feels like Serral is in trouble, but he's been in trouble before. He has turned it around. Let's see if that magical Finnish man can at least send us to a Game 7 and keep his streak of winning offline tournament finals alive. Once again, the last time he lost an offline tournament finals was against the big, great Alexander Nib. in WCS Yon Shopping 2017. Since that day, ever since Serral made it to a final, he's won each and every single one of them. Cyber Forest is going to be our map for our 6th game here in the Grand Finals.
On the bottom right-hand side, our Finnish Zerg, he needs to win this one to stay in it. It's Serral.
And on the left up side, our Korean Terran player has a 3-2 lead, one map away from winning WESG 2018. It is INnoVation.
What a win it would be for INnoVation. A huge one for him. Huge opportunity to really show, you know what, I'm back. Because 2018 definitely was, I think, one of the worst years of his career. And it still wasn't even that terrible.
Yeah, but he didn't make it to BlizzCon, right? And I feel that any year that INnoVation does not make it to the WCS Global Finals or BlizzCon, however you want to call it, that feels like a bad year from INnoVation to me. Of course, he did win, I guess, nation-wise with South Korea. But that was also Su doing a lot of the work at the offline finals. Did his work online and MMA, but we all kind of expected Korea to win that event. So I don't think INnoVation looks back at 2018. He's like, you know what? One nation-wise, not bad. It's like, no. INnoVation wants more, and we know that he's capable of more. All you have to do is go over his achievements, and there are very few players out there who has achieved more than INnoVation in this beautiful game.
Well, we do see the openings are not immediately, once again, anything too crazy for the first minute and two. Obviously, potential to change up into more aggressive setups a little bit further down the line from here. But for the moment, nice and standard, similar to what we saw in Port Alexander. So you can expect maybe a little bit of a macro-focused game out of the guys.
Yeah, INnoVation's going to send his SCV to the other side of the map as well. Of course, this was kind of a weird grand finals in the beginning, and INnoVation wants to make sure that it truly went back to normal. That last game is going to give him so much confidence. He played well. It really felt that everything went according to plan. When it came to that first push, also forcing Serral to take his fourth base on the left side of his main, and then INnoVation having that beautiful double follow-up push where he got the tanks on the high ground, and the moment that Serral saw it, Serral already knew it was too late. He didn't even try to fight it. He didn't even try to keep it alive. Now that SCV is going to force Serral to expand also on the left side of his main here on Cyber.
Obviously a bit of a funky expansion because of the high ground, the rocks that kind of sit there. Does give the Terran some opportunities.
And knowing that INnoVation loves his pushes with Stim and a couple of tanks as well. I'm not sure if I'd be very happy with this start if I was Serral, but Serral obviously has to be no stranger to Cyber Forest. Good micro on the Reaper here. I mean, gets the circling. It's always one of these little bonuses, right? You don't always get a circling here as a Terran.
That's a 2-on-1 from INnoVation. So we were talking about this build earlier today. It's definitely a build Serral slipped up against when he played against it on Automaton back in IEM Katowice. He lost way too many queens for a build that typically nowadays you have a response to where you can get a good drone lead, and all the Terran really gets is a bit of map control and some creep spread.
Yep, but maybe not if you're INnoVation. Maybe those are rules that we live by when it comes to us ordinary Terran players, but maybe if you're INnoVation, you still get a little more than your traditional creep tumor and maybe a queen. And we'll see. I honestly think that Inno's very pleased to know that he forced Serral to expand where he did. It's like, all right, this is exactly what I want. It's a small map. I'm going to have quick stim. Probably going to get a couple of tanks as a follow-up push as well after the initial marine opening. Serral is scouting, wants to be careful. Don't forget he lost that Overlord as well, right, in Port Alexander very early on. These are all things that do not, in general, you just don't want to have that happen as a Zerg player. It's not game over, of course, not game-ending damage, but these are small things that you can sometimes get a good sneak peek into the Terran base without losing your Overlord.
Yep, and that's exactly what's happened here. Saw that starport timing, which should already give him a bit of an indicator as to what this could be. Didn't get to see the reactor on the factory, though, so it's, again, one of those things where you're definitely relying on just your general knowledge of what the usual timing should be and so on. As we do see from the moment, just a few more drones. Again, there's that single Evo chamber, and expecting that just to be a carapace.
Yep, maybe this is just the way that Serral likes to play against his opening now from INnoVation. Has obviously been thinking about the games. Didn't work out on Port Alexander. Don't know if I want to put the blame on the carapace upgrade, though. I don't think that's really where it all went wrong. I think we already kind of covered where we think things went wrong for Serral. Let's see if he can have a smoother start here to Game 6. Otherwise, it's going to be all over. And for the third year in a row at the WESG Grand Finals, we would have a Korean Terran winning it. Now, the only thing we need, I guess, is Beyond to come back and win next year. And then how sick would that be? Come on.
Then we've had it all, right?
Yeah. Look, TY winning the first year, Maro winning the second, INnoVation winning this year. That's it, man. Beyond needs to come back, win WESG 2020. Well, 2019, I guess.
Medivacs boosting down to the bottom side of the map. The lair on the way up as well here from Serral. As you can see, those queens quick to get on the Medivacs. Already some damage dealt.
That feels good, I think, right?
Yeah,
Always as a Zerg player. It's not much, but it's a little bit of damage, and this is important for Serral. You want to keep the drones alive, want to keep the queens alive. First queen does stay alive. INnoVation looks for damage, gets an Overlord, almost gets the queen, but almost doesn't count in StarCraft 2. And this is, I think, a pretty damn good start for Serral.
Yeah, most definitely. Those Medivacs are low, which means they're easily picked off now. The Lings didn't really allow anything to go down. I mean, saving that queen for a long time was really sick. And now enough Lings in the main base, so again, INnoVation will be held off.
Ooh, don't do that. I would prefer to see INnoVation put his Marines on the Medivac with slightly more HP, but okay, Inno's going to play this very, very safe. Imagine if there's a random queen over here on the right side. That's
You can see the queens are trying to get there.
Yeah.
The mini-map, they just ventured a little bit off of creep. This
Well,
is perfect for Serral. This is
yes.
exactly what you want.
Exactly. This is already looking a lot better than the previous game. Of course, it was a slightly different opening, but a lot better than some of the other games that these two have played against each other as well. Serral now confident enough to go up to 4 bases, and INnoVation probably thinking like, this went better last time.
Yeah, definitely nowhere near as much damage dealt as the last time he did
It's
this
a lot
build
of
against
Marines,
Serral.
though, already, huh?
Yeah, it really is. He's continued to build a lot of Marines here, right? And more Medivacs, so he's going to have an even larger push. And that means Serral really needs the Banelings to be up, but he's making more Lings.
This is a build that I know your countrymen, the Muslim, love for a long time as well, where it's like the 4 Medivac, full of Marine follow-up. You get the upgrades, Combat Shield is ready, and often there's no Baneling speed there. Baneling Nest is not even done yet. Serral has to make sure that he doesn't feel too confident, right? That first defense was really good, but 4 Medivacs full of Marines, you gotta respect that.
Yeah, you really do. If they unload fully, it can get really problematic, as we see one Marine here scouts out all of those Zerglings, so that's not going to be an issue. I mean,
these queens are all out of position at this point. I don't know if, okay, INnoVation is going to drop on top of these Marines. It's so many, excuse me, Zerglings. It's so many Marines, but in the end, INnoVation seems kind of stuck now. Serral, his Lings are scary enough. INnoVation wants to try one more time, but he's like, nope, this is not the fight that I'm looking for.
Gets out of there to the left-hand side. Still Serral with Lings across the map. They have not done too much yet. He is making a few more overloads as well, making sure he doesn't quite hit supply block. And his own upgrades continue, and INnoVation only just now starting to too.
This is not good for Inno, of course. He was looking for more, and the quicker this all hits, the better it is for INnoVation. Banelings crashing into Marines. And Medivac goes down as well, which was carrying a couple Marines, I believe, there. No, this is as close to a flawless game as Serral could be asking for. And for INnoVation, it just seems like things are not going his way. Serral even floating a little bit of money, but despite all of that, I mean, the Hydra then is going to finish up soon. So that's an easier way for the Finnish Zerg to spend its money. Serral has nothing to complain about in this game. Everything is going according to plan.
He's actually going to counterattack now. He's going to get on top of a bunch of Marines. The tank has a couple Lings on it as well. Marines pulled back quite nicely, and we'll see a tank, a good few Marines going down. I think that's fine for Serral. Like, throwing some Lings to just keep the Marine count low and to stop further aggression.
He's got the economy, right, to keep doing little trades like this. Serral is once again, he's been untouched. I don't think he's lost a single drone. Has he lost a single drone this game?
No, I don't think the Marines even got near a mineral line. Maybe one on the 3rd base when he had to pull the drones away for a
when
second.
he lost the Overlord as well, right? That was pretty much the only one. So INnoVation still in this, though. It's just not going as well as some of the other openings that it went for him, and this definitely feels like a little bit of an uphill battle, but this is also a tiny map, so one fight in favor of INnoVation can absolutely turn things upside down again, but it would be remarkable. INnoVation winning that previous game after the start that he had, not a shocker. Inno is one of the all-time greats. If he wins this one as well, I mean, then you can only tip your fedora to him and be like, man, you deserve to win this tournament, because this was not the start that you dream of as a Terran player, especially not with the opening that he went for, and it would be very, very impressive.
And you can see that his focus on dropping units into the main base and the mineral lines in general has now allowed Serral to get very good creep out in front of the bases, and it's starting to hit the middle of the map, which means he's got a lot of control while moving to Hive and Aspire.
You know, it felt like such a close moment as well when all of those queens were protecting that 3rd base, and if Inno just floats to the main base, which obviously is what he tried to do, I was like, man, if like close to, I don't know how many Marines that was, but if close to 26 Marines just get unloaded into the main base right now, fighting that with Lings only, no Banelings, and no Queen support, I'm like, oh my goodness. I was like, Serral, that's so risky, but he got away with it, having the Lings just there in time. And then INnoVation even went back, tried to do it one more time, but now it's even more Zerglings. That was really close. It's one of those moments where Right now, almost nothing happened, but that could have also been game-ending damage, because if the Lynx get picked off, then the Queens later don't have the same impact anymore. This medevac gets sniped as well. I mean, Serral's still winning trades. INnoVation is slowly but steady, getting up to 4 bases though. Still in this game, still has stuff to work with, but I mean, Serral, this game is now in your hands, and it does really feel that, I mean, he's got all the tools, right?
Yeah, with Hive finished up, he can go into Adrenal Glands. He can get the Vipers again, which is what he's going to go into. He starts the Great Aspire right away as well. And that scan from INnoVation, I think, seeing a completed Hive, you're like, oh, that's not brilliant, right? Like, I was maybe expecting to see the Hive like being building and just confirming you are moving up to Hive. Seeing it finished at 10 minutes, not pretty.
Extra starports have been slapped down though by INnoVation as a response to all of this. The fusion core has been slapped down as well, and I still believe that INnoVation probably is quite confident that he's like, you know what, if I can just hang in there on my 4 bases for quite some time, and if I survive one of those scary waves of Zerg units with Broodlords and Corruptors and everything, and the Vipers as well, if INnoVation can survive that, if he can get up to 5 bases, I mean, maybe then this is still his way back into this game. Look at these Hydras just chasing down that medevac. 1 or 2 more hits, but of course Serral did not forget about those previous games, and I think that we're going to see a more aggressive Serral than we saw in some of these games from the IEM. And this game, of course, allows it as well. A, it's a much smaller map, which of course is nice for slow units like Broodlords, and B, Serral's had a pretty damn clean start.
Yeah, the clean start really helps him just propel forwards into a much better, faster late game. A little bit of a fight going on the top left side. Our Observer is missing a little bit of. There's a lot going on there.
Yep, this is very nice, guys, but I'd love to take a look at all of these Marines and the Queens. It seemed like INnoVation pushed Serral back a little bit, but Serral has the money to make the Broodlords. Now, 1 medevac got picked off there on the south side, kind of like the spread of units at Serral. Oh, okay. For a second, I thought, man, I don't know what happened with my brain. I was like, are those Marines? So I was like, oh my goodness. It's like, no, Marines are not red. Definitely not supported by Queens either.
Yeah, they also didn't roll around. As you can see, the Broodlord's about to finish up
They
then,
should roll around, though. That should be an upgrade for Marines. The speed upgrade, where they just roll around like true Navy SEALs. A lot of firepower in all these Marines, but a lot of healing power in these Queens as well. The 3-3 upgrades are about to finish up for INnoVation, but this is it. This is that scary push. There are 7 Vikings in the mix, but are 7 Vikings enough to keep these Broodlords at bay, Wadi?
They might be, but there's so many Queens underneath as well. The Vipers full of energy, so parasitic bombs are also an option. Or just abducts, but the Hydras weren't really underneath. I guess the Queens were. Now a parasitic bomb comes down. I mean, the Broodlord's still taking a bit of a beating, but the Queen's transfusions are obviously very good here to help out, and the tanks are only going to friendly fire with those Broodlings dropping in.
Yeah, they got a couple good shots up there. I must say, INnoVation is doing a really good job in controlling those tank shots. Actually kept most of his Marines safe. Serral is still maxed out, but lost a little bit of his anti-air, lost a couple of those Vipers as well. I hope we're not going to look for 45 seconds of those Vipers again, leeching energy, because this seems like it's a pretty crucial moment in this game. First, Ghosts come out as well. I still think Serral is a bit nervous here. Those Queens are very clumped up. The Queens are taking massive damage from these tanks. Inno's doing a good job in controlling the tank shots, but does INnoVation have the anti-air to take care of the Broodlords?
Well, it kind of feels like he does, because there's no transfusions really left over. The Hydra's now going to move forwards a little bit. The Lings and Banes jumping on the army. It's messy. Players are losing a lot on either side, but I feel like Serral's going to lose everything, with INnoVation having a bit left over.
That's a phenomenal hold by INnoVation in the end. He did such a good job in controlling those tanks, keeping some of the key units alive, and well, this may not have been the greatest start for INnoVation, but he's right back in it, if not perhaps even ahead in this game. He went up to 5 bases during all of this. Serral's going to try to do something about it, but INnoVation is already here. He's going to try to save the day. There are some Banelings in the mix, though. Those are scary, but Inno with a pretty decent split there as well. The Vikings landing, 1 or 2 goals do get picked off. Man, these Lings are feisty.
Yeah, those Lings are doing so much now. The Hydra's still fighting. The Planetary Forest cancels, lifts up, and the command center backs away. Good moment or two from Serral.
Yeah, he needed that as well, man, because that was a pretty big defeat there. This massive battle at this initial 3rd base of INnoVation. Wow. I can't blame INnoVation for trying to save that. I actually thought he was going to. Those 2 or 3 Banes, I think those really helped, forcing all of these units to spread out, and that allowed all the Zerglings to get us around on almost every individual unit rather than on a pack. Serral needed that victory, man. I feel like Serral was in a lot of trouble after that fight where he lost the Brutes. And once again, I cannot compliment INnoVation enough on how he controlled his tanks during those fights. Because indeed, normally it's Broodlings on top of Marines, tanks dealing so much friendly fire. Obviously, it happened a couple of times during those battles, don't get me wrong, guys, but Inno did a phenomenal job, I think, in sometimes using hold position, not letting them fire at all, and always going for those screens as long as they were in range. That was a phenomenal hold by INnoVation.
Really sick. Serral maybe even just overcommitting in without the Vipers once they got taken down.
Yeah, but maybe
I
that's...
mean, it looked like the opportunity was there. Like, we've got
Yeah.
8 Broodlords still.
Yep, and he had the Hydras as well. Maybe he felt like, you know what, the count is so low on those Vipers that I'm just going to try to transfuse my Broodlords a little bit, and I'll throw the parasitic bombs out there, because every Viking that I kill from you is one that you're not going to get back that quickly. But the opposite was true. Loved it. Epic battle. Man, what a game. Game 6 here at our grand finals of WESG. Serral obviously still in this as well. Still has a really good economy. He's getting packaging glance now, and even +1. Whoa, that's a lot of drones, by the way, Serral.
Yeah, he's got 96 workers. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Even if he is on 6 going to 7 bases, it's not really the number you usually have. 80, 85 is usually the max we see. He's making a lot of spores, so that's why he's going to free up that supply. So he's actually looking to play a longer game then, because otherwise, why invest in that many spore cores? Obviously.
No, it really felt that previous push was meant to be sort of a game-ending push, right? And even when the positioning wasn't that beautiful anymore and the tank shots were a little bigger than they were supposed to be, Serral did not want to back off. He's like, nope, I'm going to try to send us to the rubber match right here, right now, into a Game 7. But INnoVation said no. He held the wall. And now we're looking at a scenario that we're a little familiar with. Of course, I still think Serral's in a better position than he was in some of those other games, which wasn't the case, by the way. He didn't get that 5th base. That was such a crucial moment, because that actually gave Serral the breathing room to really get another proper setup going. I mean, this kind of also feels a little bit like Dunkirk. We're here, you're there, trapped in the corner of the map. But it feels that INnoVation is not that worried about scenarios like this, where he's like, yeah, you can have me surrounded, but you're just not going to take me out like that.
INnoVation with 5 command centers, so it just says how he wants to approach the rest of this game now. Really starting to macro up heavily. Will catch the bottom left base of Serral, who is actually focusing on the top right. He's mining from the top right corner.
Yep. I mean, that's nice. This also goes back a little bit to some of the arguments we've made earlier today. I know this is still early, guys, so this is not that crazy yet, because there are so many resources left on this map to being mined. But in crazy split map scenarios like this, where both players are maxed out and banks are being built, it is really important if you can mine off bases on what is supposed to be your opponent's side of the map. Right now, Serral's mining of 2 bases that are supposed to be split, right? If this is a split map scenario, you know, one person is supposed to have this one on the right top side, and the other one is supposed to have the left bottom side. Serral taking away resources of those bases is already very crucial. Maybe not right now, but could become very important 15 or 20 minutes from now.
And it's this sort of forward thinking that really puts you into great positions in those super late game scenarios. While 5 bases is nice for a Terran, it doesn't last forever, especially if the Zerg plays for a much longer game.
No, 5 base. This is not Automaton. Look, Serral is taking that base below INnoVation's initial 4th base now. And there's no way INnoVation is going to be okay with that one. The left bottom side, maybe he's like, you know what, I'll worry about that one later. Let me just get a stronger army, more ghosts, more Vikings, better upgrades. But this one, INnoVation knows. He cannot let Serral mine of this base.
Tanks here, Liberators as well. There's actually quite a lot of Link Bane Hydra. Serral's going to go up. Oh my god, there's 4 siege tanks here in the end. That's crazy. But he still gets a lot of them. He is going to be able to pick off the Liberator.
Wow.
And he saves the base.
Yeah, the base is still alive. How's the base still alive?
Why are these turrets still alive? The Hydras just walk past them.
First, nukes are on the production tab as well. More Vikings being produced. Seems like Serral is going to move more and more of his forces. I mean, this base is going to get picked off right now, but at least Serral bought some time, knowing that INnoVation is not mining of it just yet. Obviously, this base on the top side is crucial. How many? I really wonder how many Broodlords Serral's currently on. It doesn't feel like a crazy amount, right? Like,
just
I know
a few to like support here and there.
Just to keep positions safe. One more Hydra Link Bay. Maybe he feels it's has more units on the north side. It seems on the minimap that INnoVation is sending more units to protect this location as well. But you gotta love this position eventually as Inno, right? You have tanks on the high ground. High ground vision is going to be hard to get by for Serral with all those missile turrets in the mix. Now Scan is going to go down. A couple of these tumors are going to get picked off, and slowly but steady, INnoVation is sending his, securing his 6th base, and that's obviously massive.
Fire pushing through, then the Banes and Hydras still trading. Obviously, all the Broods and Vipers are on the top right. Maybe you'd like to see the Broods pushing forwards a little bit.
Burrow is being, I mean, that's something that a lot of people were critical about when it comes to Serral versus Gumio, right? Where eventually he lost to Battle Cruisers. I don't think that's going to happen here. Serral is going to pick off a matter of fact, but where it felt that he was maybe a bit too inactive with those Brood Lords. And I understand being worried about Ghost, but I also think you want to keep the pressure up. You don't want to slow down too much. There are infestors on the way now, so that's obviously something, and there's Burrow being researched as well. But I'm with you. I'd love to see... I mean, Broodlords are great, but you got to get something with them done. And I think the power of Zerg sometimes are the tech switches as well, right? Where you can suddenly remax on something and then maybe make another big push somewhere. I'd love to see him get a tiny bit more active with these Broods.
Yeah, because right now they're just sat under spores, and I think there's a lot of bio ghost on the bottom left, so how much is really left to protect the top right? It's tough to say because the observer doesn't show that Terran base that the Broods are right next to, but...
How many ghosts do you think we're working with right now?
10 plus.
Ooh.
Get into that sort of number.
All right, there's our first official nuke of the game, right?
Yeah.
It's been ready for a while. This is it. Serral is on top of it. Serral's going to abduct this ghost.
And he was very good at being on top of nukes during IM Katowice as well.
That's a very dramatic scream, by the way.
It makes more noise than the rest of the Terran armies that have died collected this game.
It's like we've lost a lot, okay, but this first ghost going down,
That's it.
yeah, that's it. At this point, we're in a war with this Zerg. So 5 gas lost is very even, by the way, on both sides.
Yeah. A couple of more Ghost Academies too, so really building up that nuke count.
Serral still technically controls one of the bases that eventually belongs to INnoVation. So in a way, you can also say maybe Serral is not the one who has to take the risk here. Maybe INnoVation is the one that has to take the risk. But I also feel ultimately there is slightly more potential in the army of INnoVation, right? We know how effective Ghosts can be, even though Scarlet did an absolutely phenomenal job earlier today against Maru and actually just not losing everything to Ghosts, so it doesn't have to be that way. And I think in general you want to get rid of... Oh, like they've burrowed infested play.
Oh my god, if he has a fungal growth and those Banes can roll in, of course, that's pretty nice. Just bringing up a couple of infestors here and there, just having tools around the map you can utilize as the Ghosts are heading down to the bottom, even more dangerous for the that infestor.
I mean, those are units that INnoVation absolutely does not want to lose right now. Losing a couple of Marines and Marauders is tough. I think he knows, yeah. I think it got too close to the missile turret, or the Marines and the Marauders just took a look at the high ground and be like, hey, wait a minute. Burrowed infested. It's like, all right, that's the kind of game we're playing. And this is why INnoVation is now making a serious effort in doing something about this base. All of the Brutes and Vibe guys are on the right top side of the map. So INnoVation gets this base, drops a defensive tactical nuke there as well to make sure that you can actually get the job done here.
And this is where I think Serral should try and kill the top base
absolutely.
of the Terran play.
Absolutely. All the Ghosts are here. The Ghosts are the scariest units out there. Yeah, sure, this also looks scary. But if you're not fighting in the left bottom side, you got to make the fight happen here. Fungal does land. Parasitic Bomb lands.
Vikings going down on the top right especially. Queen's here to transfuse a little bit as well. Vipers still have some energy as the missile turret's being picked away at. Disruptors don't want to dive too far in. But once they do get through the missile turrets, those Liberators are going to go down pretty quick. More Parasitic Bombs dropping, and these Vikings are dropping fast now. This is a good win from Serral. That should be a dead base.
That is a massive win. Now these Corruptors should just work on the Liberators. There's nothing to protect these Libs. Now the Ghosts do start showing up though, and that's going to actually save the day for INnoVation for now. That is a massive fungal. Can a couple of these Ghosts go down? A lot of these Ghosts go down. The Broodlord's getting some pretty good shots off. Of course, there's quite a few Brutes went down in the process as well.
Great fungal growths.
Great battle.
That's exactly what Serral needed. The Ghosts, I'm surprised, made it up there in time after being all the way down on this bottom side. And again, did feel like those Corruptors could have just dove on a couple more Liberators. But all said and done, Serral.
What a final.
Yeah. I mean, this is what we wanted as well, right? A couple of games like this.
There is history between these two already, and this is just shaping up to be a truly epic final. And I already love it at this point. It started off a little crazy and a little wonky, but they're really bringing the fight towards each other right now. INnoVation, in the end of the day, picked off a base there and didn't lose his base. Still has plenty of goals. There is a nuke below your Broodlords here, Serral. I think he's aware of it. Does not get the goals yet, though. Ooh.
Oh, no. He actually brought the Overseer away, so he lost detection. He's still away in time, but that was a bit of a mistake, and it could have been costly.
A dangerous game. Serral's playing a dangerous game. Serral did try to, by the way, re-establish the left bottom side, because during this big fight, we had a little bit of picture-in-picture, and the Hydra, Lings, and Banes are still, you know, trying to keep this base alive as well. There's another nuke landing kind of close towards this army, but Serral's on top of that one as well. The Parasitic Bombs were massive. It seems almost impossible if you're INnoVation. Oh, I love this nuke. This is nukes everywhere at this point. I did really love The fact that like Serral's obviously fighting on the left bottom side as well, and INnoVation's kind of microing his units there. And on those moments, ooh, 11 goals going down. Serral did not see that one. Serral's still at 52 drones, but he's going to absolutely replace some of that because he's not happy with it. But yeah, it's just like, how do you control bio at the same time and also split Vikings on the other side of the map? That seems a bit unrealistic.
Hydras and Bane's pulling back here. It's still tough to fight into that bio because, I mean, there's a little bit of ghost support. It feels like there's just so much of it. Here we go. Serral's going to come in. Hits a fungal growth from the right side. Hits a lot of the ghosts, and all of those get hit by Baneleys. That's really nice.
That fight went a lot better for Serral than I expected it to go, even though INnoVation does survive with a couple of units, but Serral lost some expensive units there. There are more and more nukes being dropped. Really wants to take out this base. He's like, hey, that's supposed to be mine down the road, and if I'm ever supposed to win this war of attrition, I kind of want to start mining of that base. Serral still keeps it alive, loses 11 more drones in the process somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where that happened, maybe on the right side of the map or something, but I mean, these nukes have definitely been pretty successful.
Yeah, that goes there, so tricky to deal with because it's just not, the Brutals aren't in the right position to deal with it.
It's a pretty epic neighborhood fight there, by the way, on the top side.
That's what you get for taking the base next to INnoVations.
Stuff growing up over here, man.
Another nuke right on top of this. Parasite Bomb hits the Vikings. Good split away, splits into the Spore Crawlers, so Vikings goes down. Yeah,
does he get the right one?
No.
Yeah. In the end, he does. I mean, this fight over the left bottom side is pretty important. Once again, every second that goes by, Serral is just mining more and more of that base. And we all know that spellcasters eventually become more important, right? If you start running out of units, it's so nice. You start running out of income. Every time that Serral drops a parasitic bomb, it's not even necessarily about all the damage. I'm not sure what happened to the nuke. It's not going to drop. It's not even about all the damage, right, on all the other Vikings. But worst comes to worst, it's one Viking. But those start adding up as well. You look at INnoVation, he only has 600 gas in the bank. So every Viking that gets picked off is one that actually kind of hurts.
Looks like Serral realizes he needs a bit more down on this bottom left side. There's a lot of Liberators here now as well. We've seen the Corruptors, I think, on the way down to help this out. Maybe a bit more of Lingvein Hydra. Let's see what it is when it shows up. It's the Overseers and Corruptors coming through. And the Vipers as well. It still needs a bit of Lingvein Hydra to be able to clean up the ground on because there's a lot of bio here. INnoVation keeping a good bio count so you can keep denying this bottom left base.
Yep, a couple of Banelings do crash into the Marines, but the Marines do survive on the right side, and INnoVation finally wins. A good battle here in the left bottom side. He's now going to be able to maybe take control of that base as well. I think there was actually a command center in the waiting room. INnoVation, feeling adventurous, gets his second base in a row. What is Serral doing now with all those roots? I really love. There was a command center right on the left side of that hatchery above the trees, basically, in the left bottom side.
Shows up and just takes it right away because he's so eager to mine because he knows how important that is.
Snipes.
Yeah, lining up and just Serral. Using the spores in position, but took a little while. Finally, the Infested show up. Big fungal growth, but with those Liberators there, it's tough to move forward. Another big fungal on the ghost.
A lot of damage, but not that many kills
hits
yet.
Another. How did it reach?
Okay. Wow. Look at those Rootlings. They're chasing down goals, and they have almost no HP. More fungals, by the way, now from the middle as well. Can Serral strike back after just losing 2 base? Look at Serral's minerals, by the way, Wadi. Yeah. He's banking a lot of gas, but he needs some minerals. He's going to go for it here. This looks like a painful engagement, but the planetary is not ready yet. Beautiful splits by INnoVation on the left bottom side. How does he do it? How does he keep those Marines alive? But does it matter? Does he have enough here?
I don't think so. There's a few too many Lings and Hydras as the Marines go down. Now all of these fresh mules will drop as well. More fungals on the top side.
Sick.
How is Serral doing this while he's fighting on the bottom? One more fungal growth. Vikings keep dropping. INnoVation supply is down compared to what we've seen so far in this game, and he does not have a bank to instantly rebuild. Neither does Serral, but he's got a supply lead.
Nobody told me this was an Archon match final, by the way. I don't know who the other players are, but they're doing a really good job controlling the smaller armies in this game, by the way. Awesome, epic. 3-3 upgrades are on the way for Serral. I'm loving this epic fight over the left bottom side, while also never ignoring what's happening on the top side, right? But yeah, a couple of those goals going down and those big fungals on the Vikings. You look at INnoVation, he's back to making Marines. Is that because he wants Marines? No, but he's just low on gas. It takes so much gas for a Terran player to produce Liberators, Vikings, Medevacs, and goals that now he's just starting to run out of it. He needs a base. One nuke, of course, could change everything, but this nuke is not going to land.
Ghost even trying to run away there as that top side base from INnoVation will fall, but also Serral having some trouble on the bottom side of the map too. Well, this base is at least mined out, so it's not as important, but it does give INnoVation progress towards the main and another base on the bottom side which Serral hasn't mined out completely.
And the yellow submarine lands in a very
Yeah.
big way. You know, it's really funny because I feel like they have reverse problems at this point. I mean, this planetary finally goes down, but there really isn't much left. Inno is low on gas. Serral is low on minerals, and INnoVation's mining an insane amount of minerals at this point. Finally squeezed out a couple Vikings again, but yeah, even though it feels like Serral's had a couple of victories here and there, Inno's still more than in it, especially now that he has finally secured his left bottom side.
32 workers each, by the way. So both of them have lost a lot of their mining. And even, I mean, obviously the mules there for INnoVation. Once those mules fade away, though, it's going to be pretty similar incomes once again.
Good news is for Serral that infestors don't cost a lot of minerals, do cost a lot of gas, but I'm starting to get pretty worried about this mineral income of Serral, and then you can't throw away that many Zerglings if you're already so low on minerals.
It's not often you see the Zerg play low on minerals, right? Usually it's the
No.
gas that's the problem.
Yeah, I know. Maybe Serral went a little extreme on mining gas this game.
Maybe because he ended up making so much molding being Hydra than he thought he would because of the attacks in the bottom left that we've seen.
Yeah. Or he's just so worried about INnoVation ever mining all that gas, and
Yeah.
he's worried about all of his ghosts.
Nice deny. That's a Dead Sea chunk too.
Yeah. No, apparently
No.
not.
Apparently not.
Full surround of Broodlings, apparently not enough to kill a tank. Today we have learned random goals running forward.
Nuke dropping down as the score crawls here as well. The
Double nuke.
Vipers, the Vipers want an abduct, but it's going to be
Ooh,
tough
that's a
in the
nice
end.
one.
They just get a Parasite Bomb on Siege Liberators. Every little bit of damage adds so much to this right now. The nuke doesn't kill much. In fact, kills a ghost, I think, on the high ground.
Yeah, seems like it next to those Marines, right? Those Brood Lords still being annoying as well. How many Vikings? We have got 15 Vikings. I think that's a few more than Serral was expecting. Serral has 7 Infestors and 8 Vipers himself. Those are key units at this point.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's got a lot of gas in the bank to rebuild them. But to mine gas or to build units, you also need some minerals. And that's just so unique to see a Zerg player. Now, Serral has re-established 6 o'clock, by the way. Now his income looks a lot healthier again. It's 1900. For a while, it was 7 or 800. That's basically a one base economy.
Marines pushing through. A couple of Spore Crawlers are going to go down on the top side of the map. And this army of INnoVation continues to move to the top right-hand side. So this is going to be INnoVation changing up momentum in a big way here. Wants to hit that base of Serral, that Serral will give up. It's so close to mining out, but that means Serral really barely has any income now.
Yeah, it's this one. This one cannot go down, though. And Serral actually kind of indecisive with his massive army in the middle of the map. That hatchery took some damage. That hatchery will survive, the one on the bottom side, not the one on the top. Okay, Serral's army, I think, is quite a bit better, but 7 ghosts can absolutely make magicals happen, right? 1 EMP on a bunch of clumped up infestors, and suddenly, I don't know if Serral's army is still better.
No, as soon as if those infestors lose their energy, well, that's a huge amount of his army that suddenly just isn't meant to do what it was intended to.
The split feels better for INnoVation at this point, right? Like, okay, there is kind of what Serral was looking for, because there isn't the proper answer against these Broodlords. Serral had a few too many Broods, I think, before on the south side. And now I think we're getting ready for round 11 over here on the left bottom side. The Vikings going forward. But they see something that's quite intimidating, and that is a lot of Vipers. And of course, never forget about the infestors. Like, just like that, it's 2 Vikings going down. No, 1 barely survives with like 1 HP, but yeah, these are nice little traits. Look at the gas difference. 5k for Serral, 4D for INnoVation.
And now Serral seems to have a little bit more mineral mining, so he's able to really spend that gas.
Snipes.
That's obviously what he was missing. Good snipes, real good snipes. That's what INnoVation needs. As Banes do crash in over here. A couple of medevacs in trouble as well. Looks like this top side army has just been cleaned up completely.
Yeah, there was no answer against those Broods, right? It was a lot of bio, but absolutely nothing that was good against Broodlords. So Serral does get a victory in the middle of the map after losing 2 infestors during all of this. I think it's funny as well, where often you see one player is just paying slightly more attention to one side of the map, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, you get a win there, but you get a lose there. Like Serral gets a minor loss on the bottom and gets wins at the top. This is fun to see.
And but it is so impressive that they're always only like minor losses, right?
Yeah.
Like these guys are never overcommitting their army so much so that they just get wiped out in one location.
I mean, Serral is maxed out one more time, and it seems like he's pretty serious, pretty determined about making a final push. There are overseers in the mix as well. A couple of Vikings get abducted. Both of them go down. 2 goals get neuroed. I would have loved to see him land an EMP, man.
Yeah, landing EMP on those other ghosts would have, I mean, it's really good though, right?
Yeah.
Like, as stupid as it sounds, it can do so much. And, well, INnoVation now, those Vikings want to come in, but how do you come into so many Vipers in front of
Yeah, this looks rough for Inno. Inno knows that he cannot give up this base, but I'm also not sure if he can really protect it. There are a lot of Vikings on his side, but the spellcasters, man, we've been talking about gas for a while, guys. But INnoVation is back to building Marines. And Marines are just not that good against Infestors and Broodlords.
Nope, they really, really aren't. 4 more nukes on the way up. I mean, I feel like the nukes we saw already, though, weren't even that amazing, right? As that's a nice set of abducts, Vikings, Ghosts,
Oh
and
my
one more,
goodness.
why not? Big EMPs, though, hit on the Vipers, so now the Vipers have no energy. I feel like if there's a moment for innovation, it's now, but it's still not easy because of the Spore Crawlers.
What do you do, right? Running into Broodlords, like just charging into. And he has no idea where all the Infestors are, right? Like, yeah, the Vipers are very scary for the Vikings, but let's not forget about all the fungal growth. We've seen a couple of massive fungals already. It's like both spellcasters are just straight up terrifying for these Vikings of INnoVation. And INnoVation has no dreams at all of ever rebuilding them if he loses them. So I understand that he doesn't just charge forward there.
Vipers have energy back, and there's a parasitic bomb. Great split away.
Yes.
How did you do that?
I know! I would have taken like 4 more ticks of damage there. Volleys, I want to say. That's amazing. So fast.
Nice abduct on the Liberator as well. Spore still pressing in. Ooh, INnoVation's going to move down the ramp, and that might be Serral's time as the fungal growth is huge. He combines it with another. A lot of bio going down. The Spore Crawlers make short work of Vikings so far as well. And this is INnoVation losing way too much, and Serral knows it, moving forward himself.
Yeah, that's gonna, I think, probably be it for INnoVation, who's played an absolutely phenomenal game after a very, very rough start. And he's still fighting. He's still trying to push forward with one more Ghost. One more nuke, hoping for that dream nuke. Are we gonna get that dream nuke?
I mean, Serral's kind of sat on it, but he's been so good with the nukes, man, and he just knows how long he has before he has to pull away. It's impressive.
Serral now finally up 100 supply, and INnoVation truly running out of steam. 0 income, by the way. Is that base already mined out because of all the mules?
But I mean, yes,
Serral,
and also Serral mined a lot of it.
Yep.
He had it for a large portion of this game because initially INnoVation had to fight for the base above that one.
The almost desperation scans, I feel. Is like
trying to figure out how much is left for Serral.
Yep. You've got an income because I don't.
Yeah, Serral isn't mining too much more, but he's already had so much gas, right? And he still has money in the bank, and that's the difference.
And he's still maxed out.
Yeah, and still being maxed out helps as well, definitely.
Yeah. What an amazing game between these two fantastic StarCraft 2 players. INnoVation does not want to give up yet, but I think he also knows that the writing's on the wall. That is one more amazing fungal. The entire army does get fungled, and I think that's going to be it. Yeah. We are going once again to a Game 7 at the Grand Finals of WESG. Man, this tournament is just blessed. 3 years in a row, 3 Game 7s. Are you kidding me?
An amazing series as well, and that game was so good. 35 minutes of amazing ZVT. It was dangerous on both sides. INnoVation didn't have a good opening. Serral was really able to set it up. Yeah, it's like in the course of one game, and it has changed everything.
I know, it's only dark over there in China. That was awesome. Like, a lot of people were giving Serral a lot of kudos for the games that they had at the Intel Extreme Masters, that even though INnoVation was able to win some of those 45, 46-minute games, it was off the back of a phenomenal opening. So a lot of people gave Serral compliments for surviving it for as long as he did. Absolutely deserved. In this case, I think the roles were reversed. I think now INnoVation deserves the compliments as well for even making it that deep into the game. And of course, you can say, like, maybe some people are like, Serral always had that game. I think it got very worried, and I think that very quick pick-off on that 5th base after that first failed Broodlord, that was so massive.
Yeah, monumental, I think, that turnaround, because I do feel like he stuck around that fight a bit too long. He's almost too eager to end the game, and then he lost a lot. And if INnoVation has 5 bases, then the momentum begins, and Serral is not going to hold bases. He's not going to be on the map, and maybe that is the absolute turning point in the game, actually.
Yeah, Serral absolutely did not have much at that point. It was like 140-ish supply, and those few Lings and Banes and Hydras, I mean, I said it, those Lings were feisty, and they really made all the difference, allowing the Hydras to eventually get the pick off. And it just changed the pace. It took away any momentum that INnoVation may have had after having a phenomenal hold in the first place. Can't believe it, Wadi. We were kind of worried that we were going to have a short day. This feels like one of my longer days of casting at this point, after that ridiculous first best of 5 that we casted early today between Maru and Scarlet, where Maru, of course, did walk away with that bronze medal. So he completed his collection. Maru has won it once, took second once, and now today he finished 3rd. Serral is looking to add a gold medal to his collection, where he already has a bronze one here. He's spotting in the right top side. It's New Repugnancy. It's Serral.
And in the bottom left, our South Korean Terran. We're tied up 3-3. It's Game 7. This is INnoVation.
Did he just went for a big sigh? Kind of felt like it. I don't know. It was kind of hard to see, but it felt like he went.
Send my SCVs on the map.
I mean, it's crazy, right? $110,000 difference right now between first and second place in this tournament. Serral opening up with the 16 pool. What is not as crazy as King's Cove, which still struck me as the weirdest build in the entire best of 7, of course. But yeah, Serral maybe gonna try to sneak a couple of links to the other side of the map. Don't really understand this because I feel INnoVation has been SCV scouting almost every game.
Yeah, he SCV scouts usually as the barracks finishes or so. So it's not super early, but it's early enough to see that it's not a hatchery first, and so the Reaper can stay at home.
Yep, and if the Reaper stays at home, these links are gonna have a pretty tough time in working away on the SCV. Maybe at once you can get maybe one SCV pick off, and sometimes you can force the command center to be delayed for a little bit. But Serral clearly, or Serral is like, what if he 2-rexes or 3-rexes me here
possible, right?
in Game 7? It's like Korean Terrans do have a little bit of a reputation for doing that kind of stuff in Game 7, but maybe Maru a lot more than INnoVation does.
CV starting to move towards the upper right-hand side as we talked about, and of course there is a couple of Zerglings coming out here, and they will want to try and avoid the SCV.
We were talking a lot about rivalries right within this scene, and you gotta love the storyline that's unfolding between these two right now. They had a great final last year. They had an epic series as IEM. INnoVation took the title away as the unofficial world champion, which is a long-standing sort of practical joke, but still kind of funny to follow, of Serral. Serral, of course, still the official champ, but I mean, I think this has been an amazing finals already, and I can't wait until the next time they clash, man. I want to see if we can get some more 4-3s between these two.
Yeah, they really like to go the distance in their matches. As we do see that SCV going to end up getting back home. The Lings weren't able to pick it off, but also it has deterred the Lings from continuing across the map.
Yep.
And Reaper just sat at home.
This is why we mentioned INnoVation likes the SCV scout, so he'll make sure that he doesn't take too much damage here. Serral wanted to take this base, sends his drone back. All right, Waddy. What's going on over here?
A little bit interesting, really. Not really much to say other than maybe he just wanted to get the extra queen and a few extra drones initially, and then just take that hatch at a slightly different timing. So
Reaper is heading in this direction, and Serral doesn't really have quite the money yet, but he should have the money just in time. So Serral will be going up to 3 bases here. Everything is quite normal. It's Hellions on the production up at this point for INnoVation, and I also believe that we're heading towards a Banshee. Maybe a similar push to what we saw in Port Alexander. I mean, that obviously worked out in a really big way for Inno.
no, it really, really did. It was one of those openers which, you know, hit fast, it hit hard, and got a lot out of it. Pretty much running the game then and there with a little bit of continuation.
All right.
Fast stem again.
If you have to make a prediction right now, Waddy, in Game 7, 3.5 minutes in, what do you think? Another Korean Terran victory at WESG, or for the first time a European Zerg victory?
I think Serral's got it. He looked really good in that last game, even when it did take a turn for the worst. I think he's sharpening up as the series goes on a little bit.
Okay, that's a good body block there as well by these drones. Good scout, of course, with the Overlord. I mean, Serral did look good in the previous game, but he also had a phenomenal start, right? Obviously because he was just playing well, don't get me wrong. But sometimes, StarCraft 2, there's also certain things you just can't complain about, right? It comes down to half a second sometimes of Marines already unloading in the main base or not. I think the last game was awesome. Don't want to say greatest game of the year or something along those lines, but it was a pretty epic fight, especially given the stakes. I mean, if INnoVation wins that game, it's all over right there and then. Definitely one for the books, definitely one to remember if you ask me. And Cyber Forest, by the way. I haven't seen that many epic games on Cyber Forest, so I'm almost like happy for Cyber Forest that it also gets a great game.
Gets a mined out map for once. All of its bases getting used up. Left from Serral as he gets himself set up to continue. I mean, obviously at the moment, not really a lot of pressure from INnoVation, right? Just a few Hellions that could potentially dive into a mineral line and say potentially that third base wide open. Queen pops up and he only gets one drone. He's been so careful with these Hellions because he only made 4, and it's only Marines behind this because he's going very quickly into bio and tank.
Probably a little bit worried as well. I mean, even though the last 2 games felt somewhat normal, we see some crazy stuff today already. Roach Warren being thrown down by Serral this game, getting missile attacks as well. Double Evo. Maybe some Queen Roach Ravager madness over here?
Yeah, potentially some maybe just hitting that 1-1 time. And we see quite a lot as a very popular way of playing the Roaches in this sort of TVZ match.
I mean, we saw how effective the Roaches and Ravagers were with their upgrades on Automaton when they had their 1-1. But of course, INnoVation was forced to take a couple of awful fights that he would have normally never taken in the first place if he didn't end up losing his orbital there. So, yeah, don't look too much into that game. This is going to be interesting, man. I think New Repugnancy absolutely has a couple of amazing positions for tanks. I mean, Serral, I don't know if those roaches are out yet, but you kind of need them out right now, buddy. I mean, I think he did a very good job in pushing the creep forward, so at least that buys a little bit of time. But Serral needs to get his units out. He doesn't have roach speed yet. 14 roaches should normally be enough, but it all comes down to these tank shots, right? How big will they be?
Yeah, Serral, if he gets away with this, he's on 63 drones. He's on a huge number. But he needs to get away with this, and the tank's getting to a great spot on the high ground.
One thing is that INnoVation in general sieges up very far away, right? Yeah, both tanks on the high grounds, awesome positioning, but not really in danger of killing the hatch at this point, I want to say. But suddenly all these bio units start working on this hatchery. Transfuse does land. Serral's playing a dangerous game, needs to keep his base alive.
He's going to start pushing in right now, going in towards this fight. We see the bio unit's going to have to kite away. There's not really high ground vision. Okay, the Queens have a little bit of vision there to get onto one of the tanks, but there's no corrosive bars on the tanks.
Those tanks are surviving for an awful long time. Finally, Serral starts working on it, but loses high ground vision. He does see it. Maybe there's an overlord there. Final corrosive bar is good enough. There are a few more roaches coming out, but almost all of the Queens went down, and this hatchery is still low on HP.
Extra roaches coming up, but the hatchery is going to fall. And that means Serral is knocked down to 2 bases. And INnoVation, his push came in, and it's punished Serral for being a bit too greedy on the work account.
Yep, once again, those tanks just got massive shots, right? All those Queens so clumped up in that mineral line. Also love how INnoVation switched targets for a little bit to the hatchery in the beginning of that fight, just to make it a little more scary for Serral, just to put slightly more pressure on Serral as well. I mean, Serral, yes, he's up 10 supply, but losing a base, especially after making that many roaches as well, never what you're hoping for. Of course, with this build, INnoVation is 30C is quite late as well, but we're talking about roaches. Hey, what happened to +1? Did he cancel it?
Yeah, he cancelled +1 missiles when that attack came in, and now he's just going to restart it, so he's actually not even in a great position in terms of upgrades. Does have units to deal with this drop, though, so that's not going to be something. Nice attempt on the bars, but just not quite in position.
Close, but not close enough. You gotta love this as INnoVation. INnoVation, I think he kind of knows what he wants to do. He's like, all right, 64 army supply right now. Let's try to get up to 100, 110, and then make another push with more tanks and more bio. And this time, we will not be looking at infestors. We will not be looking at anything crazy. No Hydra, Link, Bane either. It's just gonna be roaches, and I don't know what Serral's supposed to do. I mean, what do you do?
Definitely nothing on free bases with the Terran player, right? Because with those tanks sieged up, you're just not going to get in to attack yourself. So, really, if anything, catching the army as it's moving across the map. This Team Medivac still trying to drop. Obviously, Serral doesn't have great drop defense here in terms of there's no Hydras to shut this down. There's a Spire being dropped as a Bane Nest comes in as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think Serral also knows that if he maxes out just on roaches at this point, eventually he's going to run out of steam. He may win a fight in the middle of the map, but he's going to have a very hard time off creep running into tanks and being sieged up. No map vision at all for Serral on the south side, and that means a very easy cancel for INnoVation, who gets 3 overlords on top of all of this. And this feels like it's free damage, right? Because these units can actually still get out of here.
Yeah, but at the same time, Serral's move command and roaches. I thought they were going to go and fight already, but loses a couple before he gets there, and it's just more and more damage from INnoVation, who's just continuing to improve his position in the game.
Yeah,
another overlord, and that's a supply block for Serral.
That's 5 overlords that have gone down that perhaps didn't have to go down. Those roaches, without their upgrades, it really felt like they're doing nothing, right? They're just tickling these Marines. And that's kind of the point of the game where we're heading towards. I mean, this bio ball is going to keep growing bigger and bigger. More medevacs come out. Serral needs a miraculous comeback here in Game 7. I know supply-wise it's close, but INnoVation absolutely in control of this game.
Well, let's see what the Spire can do, maybe. Serral's got a little bit of money. I mean, it's not something you kind of expect, I feel, at this stage. 7 Mutalisks. So maybe there's some opportunity there, but it is a bit of a risk because it means it's units that aren't really going to help him fight for a little while.
Inno's army is just bigger at this point. Bigger, better. Well, supply-wise might not be bigger, but firepower, it's a lot better at this point. Serral is going to get his +2 carapace. And indeed, maybe the Mutas is what brings Serral back in this game. Maybe we can get a couple tanks for free. Maybe a few medevacs that go a little too deep behind enemy lines. Serral's now protecting his forward bases. But this is so scary. Like, imagine if you're Serral right now, you don't see anything. You have no idea if there's a game-ending push about to arrive at your front door. These Mutas will finally give Serral a little bit of map presence. There are Tors on the way, by the way. They're going to delay this forward commences a little bit. Serral's going to jump on top of a tank. Gets a tank. That's nice.
Yeah, a couple of SCVs as well, but that's It's for the moment on the third base, at least.
Yeah, it's 7 meters as well, but maybe it can give Serral the time that he needs, right? Like, I think right now Serral's probably just thinking like, oh, okay, give me some more time. Let me work with some better units than just Roaches and Ravages eventually, especially from down and upgrades. Even getting +1 flyer attacks, by the way. So maybe slowly but steady heading towards Mutilating Bane. Maybe he feels that that's his ticket back into this game, and obviously that does sound a little bit better than maxing out on Roaches and Ravages.
Already 2 4s up there, right? So in terms of trying to take fights with Mutilating Bane, it's not going to be pretty, but again, lots of Roach Ravager for the moment.
All right, INnoVation is moving out. Wardy, this could actually be it. Now, Serral is maxed out, so maybe Serral can get a good fight here in the middle of the map. It will all come down to the engagement, but I think it's safe to say that if the fight goes terribly wrong for Serral, then that will be it. Serral will not win a WSG, and instead it's going to be INnoVation as looking at that massive army. I don't know if Serral can defend this base, man. He might have to give it up, right?
Yeah, he might have to give it up and then try and take the center base. How is that going to work for him, though? The central base and the TVZ? No, thank you. It's so easy to push in, but a big counterattack, so some opportunity at least for Serral. He loses a base, but he kills off workers and denies a base.
Yeah, well, it denies it from landing for now. It's obviously not morphing into a planetary yet. Look at all these tanks being sieged up. Sort of a little bit high ground as well, so Serral doesn't even exactly know what's waiting for him. I mean, maybe Serral can set up the sickest engagement ever from multiple angles, but I don't think this is going to be it. That's way too many tanks. Serral's aware of that as well. He backs off. Serral's still maxed out, still kind of skirmishing around that forward base of INnoVation during all of this. But the 8 tanks of Inno are the scariest thing right now for this army of still a lot of Roaches.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that Serral's just like, yeah, I don't need to fight that right here. As these medevacs going down to the mutas, I mean, the mutas are getting more and more damage over here, right? I mean, a few more workers, a little bit more damage, maybe even a siege tank. We saw medevac picked off. That's the sort of stuff that will really help Serral stay in this a little bit now, as he is going to come in. The tanks are just moving that little bit close every single time.
Oh, Lynx, I think, are trying to run into the SCV line. Serral's forced to sacrifice one more base, but plenty of... Wow, that fourth base went down. All right. Just these random 7, 8, 9, well, 10 meters at this point. Getting hit this command center at this point. Is that another one, or was that the one?
That's another one, I think.
Yeah, I think that's another one as well, right? Because what else exploded there?
Yeah.
Unless it was a refinery.
No, it was in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Serral loses his own 4th base, though. That central base was never going to be easy to defend. 4th base of INnoVation back into position now in the next moment or two. At some point, though, Serral surely just has to fight.
I think Serral did such a good job now keeping a lot of units at home that maybe this is it. As hard as it is, but maybe getting a couple of Lynx and Roaches from the right side there and then trying to punish this army. Because now the reinforcements are coming. Look at the minimap. INnoVation's army is about to become a lot bigger and a lot stronger. And Serral, I think he's going to let it happen, or he just wants to fight this before it's sieged up. But it felt that maybe that was the only moment where he could have... Now he's setting it up, but is it too late?
Yeah, because now the army's going to come in from the left from INnoVation. Well, here we go. The tanks don't have high ground. Yeah, so he is going to jump on a couple of them right away. Corrosive Biles hit 2 tanks. No, he just misses one of them. Only just, though, Serral's army disappears completely. And INnoVation is going to become your WESG champion. A little smile from him as he stands up $150,000 richer.
Once again, it's a Korean Terran player being victorious here at the WESG Grand Finals. And what an epic Grand Finals it was once again. Hats off to Inno. What an amazing way for him to bounce back after a rough 2018. I love the finals, love the final games, and I mean, hats off to INnoVation. I think he truly deserved it. Took out Maru in the semifinals as well, 3-1, and he finally takes out Serral here as well in a Grand Finals. The man who hasn't lost a Grand Finals since he lost against Neep in 2017. Hats off to you, Inno. You deserved it. You monster.
I really, really feel as though INnoVation in this tournament has just been the best player, right?
Yep.
Time and time again, he has just looked unstoppable. He has been so difficult to stop as he goes all the way into the booth then. Shake hands with Serral. He's done it! He's been able to beat him again after, of course, taking him down at Katowice. This time it really mattered. And this time, he's able to do it in a best of 7 as well.
And in a very fun and entertaining and back and forth best of 7 at that. I think those are Counter-Strike guys, right? They're probably ready for their Grand Final. They're like, geez Louise, are these Starcraft nerds finally done? That took a while. Yes, things absolutely did take a while. INnoVation, this is your moment. Go ahead and lift up that beautiful trophy. You amazing Terran player.
First time, so a year or so, that INnoVation's been able to lift a big old trophy. It doesn't phase him, does it, how big that is? That can't be light, Robbie.
No, that looks pretty heavy. Maybe
Yes.
that's just not the sigh of relief. That's the sigh of like, oh my god, this thing is heavy.
I should have worked out this one.
I kind of wish I took second now. And he's like, nah, it's okay. The pain is worth the $110,000 extra.
Yeah.
Well done, Inno. Oh, it was a fun tournament, Waddy.
It was awesome. I really think so. And today started off weird, ended up amazing. Fantastic finals.
Yeah, really loved it. I think both players put on a phenomenal show. And of course, congrats.